This is a country made of land and sea, a crossroad between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, a link between cultures and continents. This is the homeland of talented people, a founding member of the Euro, a gateway to a market of 500 million people. This is the home of a world leader in fast and ultra-fast chargers for electric vehicles, a country that produces more than half of its energy out of renewable sources. A privileged partner for innovation. Every day, more and more companies come to work and think with us. We also produce cars, but above all, we think cars. Think the green road ahead of us, and think the future. Innovation is taking the country to new frontiers. This is the world's biggest cork producer, transforming cork for the most traditional and revolutionary uses, from the top of the most precious wine bottles in the world to thermal shields and rockets and spaceships destined for space. This is a leading tourist destination in the world, a competitive and sustainable location, a top country in providing technological services, host of great international events integrated in some of the most important value chains in the world, that attracts and keeps some of the most talented people. So how does a country stand out in an increasingly globalized world? Well, I guess it's by welcoming the world and bridging cultures. Portugal, talented and welcoming.
Portugal is a very beautiful and peaceful country with a very stable economic and political situation.
A country with huge potential, huge opportunities. We have a very dedicated workforce, highly trained.
Portugal has a lot of good engineering schools all over the country, and the competition is quite low compared with other countries in Europe.
Portugal has a lot of very good universities. We have a lot of good people aiming for new technologies, new challenges, new products, and the breakthrough of industry.
We came here in Portugal because of the dynamic of the market. As I mentioned, we have hired 800 engineers in less than 3 years. It really shows how dynamic is the market, how entrepreneurial is the environment, and that was really important to build our IT center.
When we recruited lately all these engineers, we were capable of setting up a team of 15 nationalities, all recruited in Portugal. And obviously, the majority of them were Portuguese, but there were a lot of foreigners already living in Portugal due to the amazing quality of life that you have here in the country.
The other reason why we came here, it was because of the international mindset. We are covering operation on 38 countries. And it was important to have people who do have that international mindset, but also who do speak English and other foreign language. And we found that here in Portugal.
The Portuguese people are not only friendly, but they're great linguists. And that, in today's world, is very important, the ability to be able to communicate directly with visitors that are coming from all corners of the planet to discover the beautiful and safe country of Portugal.
We have the people, the know-how and the willingness to learn.
There's a massive pool of talent for people that on the positions that we want to fill. So this makes it basically a no-brainer of investing in Portugal at this moment. So if you're considering, for us the experience was great, so think about it, it might be a very good opportunity.
There is a country where each dawn breaks with talent, innovation, and opportunity. A land that restlessly walks towards groundbreaking solutions for the greatest challenges. That sends its technology to space and the unknown depths of the ocean. A nation recognized as one of the top locations for international competence centers. The first worldwide in quality of life for expats, where language is never a barrier. This country is Portugal. Here, where the land ends and the sea begins, we are the gateway between Europe and the world. Even during the worst hardships, our ports and borders are an open door for talent and goods. We take every chance to reinvent ourselves. We never stop. Some say we are trendy. We know we are much more than that. And this is why Portugal keeps confirming major international projects. With several universities in top world rankings and the second highest rate of new engineering graduates in Europe, we offer a base of highly qualified assets to multiple industries. Plus, Portugal is the third safest nation on the planet. History knows us for conquering the unknown. We keep this heritage alive. From working on revolutionary medicines for Parkinson's to shaping the future with the largest 3D metal industrial printer in the world. No matter how defying your endeavors may be, this is the country where they will be solved. Right place, right time, right people. Portugal is open for business.
In an increasingly globalized world, how does a country stand out? This is a country made of land and sea, a crossroad between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, a link between cultures and continents. This is the homeland of talented people, a founding member of the Euro, a gateway to a market of 500 million people. This is the home of a world leader in fast and ultra-fast chargers for electric vehicles. A country that produces more than half of its energy out of renewable sources. A privileged partner for innovation. Every day, more and more companies come to work and think with us. We also produce cars, but above all, we think cars. Think the green road ahead of us, and think the future. Innovation is taking the country to new frontiers. This is the world's biggest cork producer, transforming cork for the most traditional and revolutionary uses. From the top of the most precious wine bottles in the world to thermal shields and rockets and spaceships destined for space. This is a leading tourist destination in the world. A competitive and sustainable location. A top country in providing technological services. Host of great international events integrated in some of the most important value chains in the world that attracts and keeps some of the most talented people. So how does a country stand out in an increasingly globalized world? Well, I guess it's by welcoming the world and bridging cultures. Portugal, talented and welcoming.
Portugal is a very beautiful and peaceful country with a very stable economic and political situation.
A country with huge potential, huge opportunities. We have a very dedicated workforce, highly trained.
Portugal has a lot of good engineering schools all over the country, and there the competition is quite low compared with other countries in Europe.
Portugal has a lot of very good universities. We have a lot of good people aiming for new technologies, new challenges, new products, and the breakthrough of industry.
We came here in Portugal because of the dynamic of the market. As I mentioned, we have hired 800 engineers in less than 3 years. It really shows how dynamic is the market, how entrepreneurial is the environment, and that was really important to build our IT center.
When we recruited lately all these engineers, we were capable of setting up a team of 15 nationalities, all recruited in Portugal. And obviously, the majority of them were Portuguese, but there were a lot of foreigners already living in Portugal due to the amazing quality of life that you have here in the country.
The other reason why we came here, it was because of the international mindset. We are covering operation on 38 countries, and it was important to have people who do have that international mindset, but also who do speak English and other foreign language. And we found that here in Portugal.
The Portuguese people are not only friendly, but they're great linguists. And that, in today's world, is very important, the ability to be able to communicate directly with visitors that are coming from all corners of the planet to discover the beautiful and safe country of Portugal.
We have the people, the know-how, and the willingness to learn.
There's a massive pool of talent for people that on the positions that we want to fill. So this makes it basically a no-brainer of investing in Portugal at this moment. So if you're considering, for us the experience was great, so think about it, it might be a very good opportunity.
There is a country where each dawn breaks with talent, innovation, and opportunity. A land that restlessly walks towards groundbreaking solutions for the greatest challenges. That sends its technology to space and the unknown depths of the ocean. A nation recognized as one of the top locations for international competence centers. The first worldwide in quality of life for expats, where language is never a barrier. This country is Portugal. Here, where the land ends and the sea begins, we are the gateway between Europe and the world. Even during the worst hardships, our ports and borders are an open door for talent and goods. We take every chance to reinvent ourselves. We never stop. Some say we are trendy. We know we are much more than that. And this is why Portugal keeps confirming major international projects. With several universities in top world rankings and the second highest rate of new engineering graduates in Europe, we offer a base of highly qualified assets to multiple industries. Plus, Portugal is the third safest nation on the planet. History knows us for conquering the unknown. We keep this heritage alive. From working on revolutionary medicines for Parkinson's to shaping the future with the largest 3D metal industrial printer in the world. No matter how defying your endeavors may be, this is the country where they will be solved. Right place, right time, right people. Portugal is open for business.
In an increasingly globalized world, how does a country stand out? This is a country made of land and sea, a crossroad between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, a link between cultures and continents. This is the homeland of talented people, a founding member of the Euro, a gateway to a market of 500 million people. This is the home of a world leader in fast and ultra-fast chargers for electric vehicles. A country that produces more than half of its energy out of renewable sources. A privileged partner for innovation. Every day, more and more companies come to work and think with us. We also produce cars, but above all, we think cars. Think the green road ahead of us, and think the future. Innovation is taking the country to new frontiers. This is the world's biggest cork producer, transforming cork for the most traditional and revolutionary uses. From the top of the most precious wine bottles in the world to thermal shields and rockets and spaceships destined for space. This is a leading tourist destination in the world. A competitive and sustainable location. A top country in providing technological services. Host of great international events integrated in some of the most important value chains in the world. That attracts and keeps some of the most talented people. So how does a country stand out in an increasingly globalized world? Well, I guess it's by welcoming the world and bridging cultures. Portugal, talented and welcoming.
Portugal is a very beautiful and peaceful country with a very stable economic and political situation.
A country with huge potential, huge opportunities. We have a very dedicated workforce, highly trained.
Portugal has a lot of good engineering schools all over the country, and the competition is quite low compared with other countries in Europe.
Portugal has a lot of very good universities. We have a lot of good people aiming for new technologies, new challenges, new products, and the breakthrough of industry.
We came here in Portugal because of the dynamic of the market. As I mentioned, we have hired 800 engineers in less than 3 years. It really shows how dynamic is the market, how entrepreneurial is the environment, and that was really important to build our IT center.
When we recruited lately all these engineers, we were capable of setting up a team of 15 nationalities, all recruited in Portugal. And obviously, the majority of them were Portuguese, but there were a lot of foreigners already living in Portugal due to the amazing quality of life that you have here in the country.
The other reason why we came here, it was because of the international mindset. We are covering operation on 38 countries, and it was important to have people who do have that international mindset, but also who do speak English and other foreign language. And we found that here in Portugal.
The Portuguese people are not only friendly, but they're great linguists. And that, in today's world, is very important, the ability to be able to communicate directly with visitors that are coming from all corners of the planet to discover the beautiful and safe country of Portugal.
We have the people, the know-how, and the willingness to learn.
There's a massive pool of talent for people that on the positions that we want to fill. So this makes it basically a no-brainer of investing in Portugal at this moment. So if you're considering, for us the experience was great, so think about it. It might be a very good opportunity.
There is a country where each dawn breaks with talent, innovation, and opportunity. A land that restlessly walks towards groundbreaking solutions for the greatest challenges. That sends its technology to space and the unknown depths of the ocean. A nation recognized as one of the top locations for international competence centers. The first worldwide in quality of life for expats, where language is never a barrier. This country is Portugal. Where the land ends and the sea begins, we are the gateway between Europe and the world. Even during the worst hardships, our ports and borders are an open door for talent and goods. We take every chance to reinvent ourselves. We never stop. Some say we are trendy. We know we are much more than that. And this is...
Good morning. Welcome to the conference Portugal-Africa, Export Green, the internationalization of companies in the era of sustainability. Thanks to the organization to invite me to participate and moderate this event. In my career as a journalist, I had and I worked experience in Africa, and I know well what kind of opportunities we have in Africa as Portuguese, as Europeans, of course. Africa has an enormous potential as market and as a big community with a special relationship with Portugal and with Europe. It's my pleasure to participate and moderate this conference. The conference will highlight benefits of the green exports and investments, and during the next hours we will address a wide audience from professionals to citizens passionate about Africa. And we will have the opportunity to debate challenges and opportunities, of course. We have a lot of presentations today, this morning, with 15 speakers about this topic, and the program is ambitious, of course, so I will try to be brief in the presentations of the speakers. First, to start with the introduction, I invite Luís Castro Henriques, the President of AICEP. Welcome, Luís. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy of Mozambique, Mr. Ernesto Max Tunela. Dear Minister for the Environment and Climate Action, Mr. João Matos Fernandes. Dear Secretary of State for the Internationalization Affairs, Mr. Eurico Brilhante Dias. Dear Secretary of State for Energy, Mr. João Galamba. My dear President of CIP, Mr. António Saraiva, our partner in this event and my dear friend. Distinguished speakers, guests and entrepreneurs, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and thank you very much for being with us digitally. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the Portugal-Africa Business Seminar, Exporting Green Economy, where we will discuss throughout the whole morning the internationalization in a sustainable era. This conference aims to provide a forum to debate and contribute to learn more about the green economy benefits, especially in these challenging times, and also to encourage Portuguese and African companies to do more business and foster new opportunities. As Africa and Portugal look certainly to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, we believe the time is really right to prioritize green transformations in that recovery. As the Nobel Prize in Economics mentioned, Milton Friedman said, and also the African Development Bank emphasized in its COVID-19 Rapid Response Facility document, only a crisis produces real change and is needed to develop alternatives to existing policies until the politically impossible becomes actually politically inevitable. If Friedman is right, we should not waste this pandemic crisis to make it urgent to include sustainability into our internationalization strategies and to our own companies' business plans. I hope this seminar will have a fruitful outcome for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you so much for the first words at the conference. And we will go away.
So, good morning to you all. Uma saudação em português e especial para o meu colega e amigo Max Tunela e também para o António Saraiva. In these pandemic times, a complete recovery is the major goal worldwide, and it must be achieved in line with environmental and climate goals. In the current context of mobilization for a green recovery, we must all converge around the motto, Building Back Better, which combines the need to align financial packages for the economic recovery with the urgency of the climate and environmental response. The message from science on the urgency for a climate-neutral transformation is now clearer than ever and represents an opportunity for economic solutions and recovery, not only in the European Union, but across the globe. The European Green Deal, the new growth strategy for Europe, provides a framework for recovery in line with the objective of making Europe the first carbon-neutral continent. I recall that the European Green Deal provides a paradigm shift in energy use, a new relationship with the use of resources, the fight against pollution, and the recognition of the central role of biodiversity to the quality of life. The progress made so far has been significant. Europe has already reduced its emissions by 26% compared to 1990, while the economy has grown by more than 60%, showing that decarbonization and growth are totally compatible. Indeed, Europe can achieve climate neutrality and a fair society while preserving the competitiveness of its industries by investing in clean energy technologies and by increasing the production of sustainable products and services. This transition requires further scaling up of technological innovations in energy, buildings, transport, industry, and agriculture sectors. We believe that although the challenge is massive, the EU is in a unique position to invest in a collective recovery and a better future by delivering on the European Green Deal, and Portugal is fully committed to follow this growth. In 2016, Portugal assumed the commitment to reach carbon neutrality by 2050, and the roadmap was designed with a very concrete set of measures and actions to be implemented. The investment needed to reach carbon neutrality in Portugal is estimated in €1 trillion up to 2050. In later years, we significantly increased the share of renewables both in the supply side and in the end use. We already have a 60% renewable share in electricity generation. However, motivation is high to go much further in the transition towards cleaner energy, thereby accelerating renewable energy uptake to reach 100% by 2050. The COVID-19 pandemic brought up as additional reasons to accelerate this transition and to pursue our energy and climate goals with renewed ambition. For the implementation of these reforms and for the energy transition, the EU's Recovery Instrument, new Next Generation EU, along with the multi-annual financial framework, are a key element, while ensuring the achievement of environmental and climate changes commitments, creating green jobs, leaving no one behind. The Recovery and Resilience Facility, which lies at the heart of the EU's recovery plan, will make 172.5 billion in grants and loans available for public investment and reforms in Europe. In Portugal, the 16.6 billion euros of the Recovery and Resiliency Plan is fully aligned with the climate and digital transition objectives, allocating more than the required 37% to climate action, both mitigation and adaptation, and complying with the do no significant harm principle. Portugal's Recovery and Resilience Plan includes investments in sustainable forest management, in water efficiency plans, in energy efficiency in public and private buildings, in renewable energy sources, including green hydrogen, in sustainable mobility, in bioeconomy, in the decarbonization of industry. These investments must be prioritized, contributing to our energy and climate goals while allowing to boost the economy. Green investments have the potential to rapidly deliver jobs, growth, and improve the way of life for all citizens worldwide, and to contribute to build more resilient societies. Africa is particularly affected by climate effects, and in this context, there is also a contribution to be made by companies. Investment in Africa should support the necessary transition to a resilient and carbon-neutral economy, improving the quality of life of populations, fighting poverty, and, at the same time, respecting nature and the limits of natural systems. We consider, therefore, that the financial sector, together with the instruments that the EU have to support the economic sector in Africa, could play a key role in promoting green investments, taking into account the fact that the project risk analysis must include the ability of a project for fighting or worsening climate change. Governments have the responsibility to give markets the correct signals for stability, enabling concrete investments aligned with the most ambitious climate goals. The EU Sustainable Finance Taxonomy Regulation is an essential financial instrument in the green and digital recovery for the COVID-19 crisis to guide investments in the identification of environmentally sustainable activities. It is fundamental to give the right signal and to indicate the best path to investors so that the European Union and partner countries achieve climate neutrality and to transform our territories more resilient to the impact of climate change. Portugal has a valuable history of cooperation with Portuguese-speaking African countries in areas of particular relevance for this green transition. Climate change, water resource management, water and wastewater services, waste management or energy are just some of the fields where public and private Portuguese actors have been building strong partnerships with African countries. Not only on the basis of technical assistance and capacity building projects, but also being a part in the development of infrastructures or supporting the development of regulatory and public policies framework. The resources of cooperation must be channeled to sustainable investments that accelerate the transition on the economies of partner countries toward decarbonization, resilience and sustainability, avoiding lock-in effect or standard assets. After more than a century, with an economy model fully dependent on fossil fuels, nowadays, we witness a growing number of countries committing to carbon neutrality and renewable energy deployment. This represents a huge transformation at global level, and we will only succeed in this endeavor if we speed up and raise the shares of renewables, both in the supply side and in the end use, and if we accelerate our efforts to change the actual paradigm. The recovery of this global crisis must also rely on international cooperation and solidarity. Europe is prepared to lead the efforts towards a global recovery and be ready to support its external partners and build with them a global response to the challenges we face to overcome the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, to foster the green and digital transition, and to build more resilient and inclusive societies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ministro Matos Fernandes, for sharing with us your view for this topic. He is the Minister of the Environment and Climate Action. And now, Ernesto Max Tunela, the Minister of the Mineral Resources and Energy from Mozambique. Welcome.
Yes, bom dia. Começo por saudar os colegas e amigos do Governo de Portugal, em especial o Ministro João Pedro Fernandes, com quem tive a oportunidade de estar há cerca de 2 anos em Maputo e discutimos muito sobre o papel das renováveis e a experiência de Portugal nesta componente. Distinguished participants, first I would like to thank the Portuguese government and AICEP for organizing this great event and invite us to share with you our vision to create a robust renewable energy market in Mozambique, highlighting attractive investment opportunities and its contribution to achieve a sustainable development goal of providing universal access to the population of affordable and reliable and sustainable energy. As you know, Mozambique holds a vast diversity of renewable resources, which includes solar, wind, hydroelectric, biomass, among others. The development of these resources will also play a key role in the achievement of more sustainable and diversified energy mix and support our national determined contribution as per Paris Agreement. However, the expansion of intermittent renewable energy source requires reliable baseload. Therefore, we see hydropower and natural gas as a key enablers to increase the penetration of renewable in our energy system. The commissioning of the first middle-scale power plant in 2019, a solar project in Mocuba, represented an important milestone in the history of grid-connected renewable energy project in Mozambique. We notice with satisfaction great and stronger appetite from national and international private companies to invest in our renewable energy projects, being currently under development, several projects in different stages of development. In this context, for the next 4 years, we expect to increase our generation capacity in more than 600 megawatts, of which more than 30% is linked to middle-scale solar and wind project. And also, we have the remaining based on gas-based projects. We believe that the grid-connected renewable energy sources is important because allow the timely installation of mid-scale plants close to the load centers, creating a more decentralized system and to improves the security of supply in Mozambique. Currently, there's a 450 megawatt gas-fired project in Temane, an investment of around $600 million, scheduled to be commenced on 2023. It is a project finance project with a partnership with an European company. And this project was also involved fundings from multilateral companies, including a European financial institution. And the additional remaining capacity of around 200 megawatt will come from the development of solar and wind project located in different parts of the country, as per Metoro, solar power plant under construction, a project financed by a French developer, that in order to further leverage and accelerate investment in utility scale renewable energy project, we felt the need to create a more attractive regulatory framework. Therefore, the first renewable energy action program in Mozambique was launched by the government last October. This program introduced a competitive and transparent bidding to select strategic partners for the development, financing, construction, and operation of 3 solar power plants of around 40 megawatt peak each, and a wind farm of 50 megawatt peak in a total investment estimated of around $200 million US. So the expression of interest of this first site was launched last October, and the tender of the second and third sites are expected to take place in the course of this year. The Renewable Energy Action Program benefits also from European Union finance support. We should also mention that renewable energy plays a key role in the off-grid electrification, and we are working with the private sector to structure initiatives to supply energy service to around 1.5 million people through mini grids and solar home system over the next 4 years. The actions and the off-grids initiative represents a good opportunities for private sector, European companies, Mozambican companies, and benefit from non-reimbursable result-based funding to the risk business initiatives and achieve competitive commercial return. So clean energy will play a major role in powering the Mozambique economy through the development of projects for the productive use of energy that will stimulate employment, create household income, contributing to the poverty reduction, mainly in rural areas. The government of Mozambique counts on strong support and involvement of Portuguese government and European Union to continue strengthening the energy sector, particularly in energy renewable projects. Portugal and Mozambique are bound by strong historical ties. There are already many Portuguese companies operating in Mozambique. However, there's still a lot to do. There's still a room to further expansion on our bilateral cooperation. So Portuguese companies are at the forefront of renewable energy sector. As the minister mentioned, more than half of the capacity is based on renewable, and they have a large-scale installed capacity in wind and solar, particularly. And we heard more recently that they are already working on the green hydrogen projects. So we'd like to challenge Portuguese company to bring know-how to come, establish and invest in those value chain project in Mozambique energy sector. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Muito obrigada. Thank you very much, Minister Ernesto Max Tunela, and we wish a lot of strength to win the war in Palma, of course. Thank you so much. Now we go to the next speech with António Saraiva, the President of AICEP and the Vice President of the Business Europe. Welcome, António.
Bom dia. Good morning. Permitam-me os cumprimentos institucionais em português. Sou Ministro do Ambiente, João Matos Fernandes. Sou Ministro dos Recursos Naturais e Energia de Moçambique, Ernesto Max Tunela. Senhor Presidente da AICEP, meu querido amigo Luís Castro Henriques. Sou Secretário de Estado da Energia, João Galamba. Sou Secretário de Estado da Internacionalização, Eurico Brilhante Dias. Dear representatives of public and private national and international entities, ladies and gentlemen, online participants. On behalf of CIP, the Confederation of Portuguese Business, let me start to welcome this important initiative that aims to bring Portuguese and African public and private entities closer together to discuss ways to foster our common green economic agendas in the context of the renewed EU-Africa Partnership of Equals for Sustainable Investment and Creation and Job Creation. Africa and Europe are natural and strategic partners to face common challenges related to sustainable economic growth, climate change, migration, and security. The pandemic has produced many disruptive effects. In sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, while the GDP is projected to decline by 3.3 in 2020, the region is seeing the first recession in 25 years. This has dramatic effects and can push 40 million people in the region into extreme poverty, eliminating at least 5 years of progress in combating poverty. The EU-Africa relations have suffered from a delay as the summit between the two continents that was to take place last year did not happen because COVID, and sadly it still does not have date set. So the pandemic direct and indirect effects make a new definition of EU-Africa relations even more urgent. Achieving the SDGs and a green transition remain a crucial objective. The public measures to support African countries facing the immediate crisis are welcome. But if you want to truly deliver on sustainable growth and job creation, towards the green transition, the right measures must be put into place so that the private sector will invest and are be able to deliver on these objectives. So public and private sectors need to define ways to joint work to overcome the negative impacts, achieving a fast economic recovery and a more resilient, sustainable and prosperous societies in the future. As public funding is not enough to meet the EU in 2030 agenda's target for Africa private investment in areas such as infrastructures, connectivity and green energy is key to create more and better jobs for the millions of Africans entering the workforce every year. And so we welcome the new EU external financing instrument, Global Europe, and we will continue to actively support initiatives that promote companies' access to finance via innovative financing instruments to leverage private investment via risk mitigation. Education and training are utmost important to labour markets' needs for more local skilled jobs. Vocational education and on-the-job training programs, as well educational cooperation between European and African universities. Research institutions and companies in Europe and in Africa countries in fields like digitalization, circular economy, agriculture and food security and energy must be boosted, including under the EU Erasmus Plus program. Regional economic integration opens prospects for expanding African markets and increasing cross-border trade and leading to more competition in domestic markets. Allied to economies of scale, this cuts production costs, boosts product diversity, and so generates increased economic activity. We recognize the value of initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area and strongly support its implementation as a key tool to foster regional integration and access of African economies to the global value chains. Economic partnerships agreements are important instruments to boost economic relations between Africa and Europe. If implemented properly, removing tariff and non-tariff barriers to regional and international trade, they will prepare the ground for deeper disciplines such as service trade, investment, intellectual property rights, or competition. EPAs should be used as building blocks to continental free trade in Africa. The generalized system of preferences is also an important trade policies instrument that can help growth and employment most African countries via a better access to the European market. For its revision this year, CIP defends a strong focus on least developed countries while helping them to commit to environment international conventions. It is with great enthusiasm that we acknowledge the conclusion of the post-Cotonou agreement last week, which sets the political and economic cooperation framework between the EU and these countries for the next 20 years. We welcome the achievements regarding investment, namely on the need to improve investment climate and to increase access to finance, as well as the agreement to work together on investment facilitation and investment protection. We also welcome achievements on economic transformation and industrialization on private sector, development and public-private sector, dialogue, and on trade cooperation. We are now waiting for its signature and entry into force so that we can reap its benefits. CIP will continue to support the boost of the EU-Africa partnership of equals in every forum. Thank you. Bom dia.
Bom dia, António. Muito obrigada. Thank you so much, António Saraiva, and thank you for all the speakers of the welcome session. Please stay with us. We return to the next part of the conference. Good morning, welcome again. In the next hour, we will talk about internationalization and sustainable development in Africa, challenges and opportunities. And we have 5 interesting presentations. With us to talk about the value of the smart cities to the green economy, I invite João Galamba, Energy Secretary of State, to take the floor. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am very grateful for the opportunity to contribute to this important debate on internationalization and sustainable development in Africa. Cities are increasingly playing a leading role in society, with urban issues occupying a central position on both international and national political agendas. This gives a very significant perspective of the importance of cities in the organization of the space occupied by man and in their interrelationships with the world around us, but also of their impact on economic activities. The current focus is on the creative and sustainable city, which makes use of innovation and technology in its planning and management process. It is also a more decentralized city with multiple decision-making centers, more open to citizen participation. What is a city today? What will the cities of the future be? We are fully aware that there is a reinforcement of the importance we attach to cities and an increasing limitation of our collective capacity to capture, understand, and transform them. In fact, it becomes increasingly difficult to define this concept that we call the city, both from a conceptual point of view as well as from a geographical point of view. Where does each city begin and end, for example? The current focus is on the creative and sustainable city, which makes use of innovation and technology in its planning and management processes. It is also a more decentralized city with multiple decision-making centers more open to citizen participation. It is in this modern, human-faced city that the concept of smart cities emerges, like organic systems of people interacting and using energy and other resources, materials, services, and financing to catalyze economic development and improve the quality of life. These interaction flows are considered intelligent because they make strategic use of infrastructure and services, information and communication, urban planning and management to respond to the social and economic needs of society. According to the Cities in Motion Index published by the IES Business School, there are 10 dimensions that indicate the level of intelligence in a city. Its governance, public administration, urban planning, technology, environment, international connections, social cohesion, capital, and the economy. But there are, of course, other indicators that can also be considered, such as accessibility, interactivity, efficiency, energy, water, waste, and so on, quality of life, innovation, mobility, among others. Despite being a relatively recent concept, the smart city concept has already consolidated itself as a fundamental issue in the global discussion on sustainable development. Currently, cities in emerging countries are investing billions of euros in smart products and services to sustain the economic growth generated by the needs of a new middle class. At the same time, developed countries need to renovate or improve their existing urban infrastructure to remain competitive. In the search for solutions to this challenge, more than half of the European cities with more than 100,000 inhabitants already have or are implementing initiatives to become smart cities. Instead of defining which cities should or should not be considered smart, it is much more constructive to think about the activities and factors that can make a city smarter. Energy plays a fundamental role in this transformation because it has direct implication on the quality of life of citizens and on the competitiveness of companies, given the impact that the weight of its cost has on the domestic economy or on the factors of production, but also what consumption management represents in the fight and mitigation of local greenhouse gas emissions. So what should be the priority areas for intervention to make cities smarter? Undoubtedly, sustainable buildings, but also smart mobility and sustainable transportation. The integration of clean energy and renewable energy communities, smart and distributed networks, the valorization of endogenous resources, and materials and the protection of natural resources. Cities have been active agents in the decarbonization of the economy, and it is essential to take advantage of this dynamic to create low-carbon cities. This is crucial to promote the transition to a green economy, since it is where most of the world population lives. with significant economic activities, being also a center of knowledge, innovation, and technology development, essential ingredients for the creation of smart cities. Smart cities aim to promote an Internet of Things network that will integrate several devices and infrastructure connected with citizens based on sensors and information and communication technologies to optimize the efficiency and quality of life of their inhabitants. For this reason, redesign cities as an integrated system instead of isolated parts will allow them to become more intelligent, resilient, and safe, with a smart and low-carbon society able to better fight climate change. Energy plays an extremely important role in the creation of smart cities, namely in the promotion of green and smart buildings, residential, public services that use sustainable solutions and technologies, such as energy efficiency equipment systems that allow the production of electricity for self-consumption, eco-friendly and renewable materials and energy and recycled materials, and energy management systems able to optimize the energy use in buildings. Portugal has a long-term strategy for building renovation, with the aim to obtain a decarbonized building stock with high levels of energy performance, based on the retrofitting of the existing buildings in nearly zero energy buildings, in line with the Renovation Wave initiative. Also, self-consumption and renewable energy communities, based on the use of local and decentralized energy systems in the city's infrastructure for self-consumption and to share locally, thus creating renewable energy communities that promote citizens as active enablers and agents of the energy transition. Also important in fighting energy poverty, in protecting vulnerable consumers, in strict cooperation with municipalities and local agents. Regarding this specific point, I have to mention the collective effort of Portuguese municipalities and cities in pursuit of these objectives. The recognition was made with a distinction in June 2018, attributed to the city of Lisbon as the European Green Capital of the European Green Capital 2020 award. The distinction results from the evaluation of a set of international experts on 12 indicators that assess the sustainability of the city. Also, smart mobility using electric vehicles or fuel cell vehicles as a path to reduce CO2 emissions and the energy transition in the transport world, while increasing the city's environmental benefits. Electric vehicles, as also fuel cell vehicles, should be seen as mobile batteries decentralized and connected to the entire urban energy grid to achieve better integration of renewable energy in the cities. Cities need to become a recovery target after the pandemic situation to be more sustainable and self-sufficient. This effort must be supported by available financing mechanisms that connect essentially in-market failures or as leverage capital for private intervention, attracting and captivating investors to promote a carbon neutrality that can be best achieved on the ground and locally. We are fully aware that it is only possible to achieve this neutrality by acting on a transition from the current energy model to a more sustainable energy model. It is needed to bet on rebuilding smartly and not resort to the business as usual approach. What is needed is to reorient the development of our cities into smart cities to achieve a green, circular and resilient economic development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary of State João Galamba. And now to present us the roadmap of the challenges and opportunities in Africa, I invite Luís Castro Henriques, the President of the AICEP Portugal Global. Welcome, Luís.
Hello again, everybody. I hope you're following with interest our seminar. I certainly am. As the Secretary of State for Energy just highlighted, the importance of smart cities for the green economy, and I fully agree, Portugal can really play an important role on this matter. This is of crucial importance. Now, I'll try to point out some of the challenges, but also, and above all, the opportunities for internationalization in Africa. Let me start by saying that I believe exports and investment provide an excellent platform to galvanize joint action in sustainable development, enabling a bridge for the relationship between Portugal and Africa naturally. Portugal has, as you all know, a natural link to Africa, thanks to its historical and cultural ties with the Portuguese-speaking countries. But indeed, Portuguese companies have been extremely successful in Africa for many, many years. And that's what I'll be talking about now. In 2020, a critical year due to the pandemic, Portuguese exports of goods and services to Africa reached about 4 billion euros. African countries represented about 6% of total Portuguese exports of goods and 5% of services, and Angola continued to be the leading destination of our exports. Now, regarding investment in 2020, Portugal invested about 6.5 billion euros in African countries, especially in 4 markets: Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, and Morocco. At the end of 2020, the overseas direct investment stock in African markets for Portugal accounted for almost 30% of the total. Indeed, we know Portuguese companies are still looking to further increase their presence in Africa, with special attention, naturally, in the Portuguese-speaking countries, either through selling the products, establishing subsidiaries, or even by looking for partnerships and new opportunities for investment. Portuguese companies bet on a long-term perspective on the African markets, and I think this is of utmost importance. And by 2019, we had more than 5,000 Portuguese companies exporting and with presence in Africa. Portuguese companies are familiar with the African markets, its local specificities, its procedures, but also interacting with its local teams. It is not by chance that many foreign companies from many different countries, whether they are Nordic, German, or even Chinese, have partnered with Portuguese companies. And let me give you an example that will be also referred later in the session, the case of Motengil, who recently partnered with a Chinese company to partner up for further activities in Africa. Moreover, I believe that sharing one of the most widely spoken languages in the world is certainly a competitive advantage that companies should certainly explore more. Portugal is perceived as a platform for those who wish to do business with the Portuguese-speaking countries and can certainly be a reliable partner in Africa. Technological innovation has created a powerful new vector for novel partnerships, and Portugal has talent, innovative solutions, and national and international experience, namely in the field of renewable energy and energy efficiency. In fact, Portugal is one of the pioneers in the green economy, and Portuguese companies have the necessary and internationally recognized know-how, innovation, and technology for this purpose. I am aware that Africa and Europe are committed, highly committed, I would say, to accelerating the green transition and delivering sustainable development. And believe me, Portugal can be the successful link between the two continents. With a population of about 1.36 billion people and growing, Africa is a continent full of opportunities, but also challenges, but above all, many, many opportunities. The percentage of people living in cities will reach 50% by 2030. Africa has the youngest population in the world, and it is growing extremely fast. In 2050, we expect that 1 in 4 people in the world will be African. By 2100, about 40% of the world's population will be on this continent. Africa has already a growing population with increasing purchasing power that can be a catalyst for the growth of the domestic consumer market. The abundance of natural resources is obviously well known, and there are several African companies that are also already respected international players in the most varied sectors worldwide. But Africa still needs many kinds of infrastructure, namely in education, health, and even regarding the transportation and the whole logistics system for certain consumer goods. In addition, as UNCTAD says in its Trade and Development Report in 2020, which was recently updated in March, Africa was severely hit in 2020 by the pandemic, and its economic output shrank by almost 4%, which compares with a trend of growth of more than 3%. But let me stress this interesting point, which I think shows the vitality of the African economy. The coronavirus pandemic triggered an e-commerce boom in sub-Saharan Africa alongside the rest of the world. In this particular case, in Portugal, AICEP is developing e-commerce services and products to support Portuguese companies, such as e-learning courses, workshops, and even partnerships with international marketplaces. There is no doubt that 2020 was a watershed year for the digital transition, but the benefits of this uptake will depend on the digital readiness of individual countries. According to a report released at the end of last year by Google and the International Finance Corporation, Africa's digital economy could contribute almost 200 billion to the continent's GDP by 2025, and almost more than 700 billion by 2050. It seems clear, therefore, it seems clear that digital economy, as well as the green economy, can be a long shot and an important shot for investors in Africa that are increasingly focused on services, energy, agribusiness, rather than the most usual extractive industries. African green transition, including smart agriculture, renewable energy, and sustainable infrastructure, can be a tool to overcome many current difficulties and simultaneously prepare for the threats posed by climate change. The African continent is home to most of the world's uncultivated land, an opportunity for partnerships and agricultural investments that can include and should include environmentally friendly technologies, a field in which Portuguese companies have well-recognized skills. Talking about innovation and technology, a trend that is increasing worldwide, is the growth of the business service sector. And what is the key factor to enhance that? Talent. We believe talent is the major competitive advantage of a country, and Portugal is the proof of that. Portugal has been investing in talent for decades and has been attracting new investment projects in recent years, each time more and more innovative. Some Portuguese universities currently offer student exchange programs and programs for African students, with the aim of promoting higher education in the region. We believe that sharing expertise helps fostering new investment and will certainly contribute to a better future. The pandemic recovery strategies appear to give a further boost to the transition to a green economy and pushes us to collectively chart a new path that leads from recovery to a more resilient, more equal, and more environmentally sustainable world. In an interdependent global economy, international cooperation is vital to both recovery and resilience. Incentivize businesses to create green jobs and green industries. This is a progressive approach to building a smarter, greener economies that can deliver sustainable development. It is my strong belief that Portugal and the Portuguese companies can help Africa achieving these goals in a successful manner. Thank you very much, and thank you all for the attention.
Thank you very much, Luís Castro Henriques. Presentation with a lot of hope to the future. And now, to get another point of view, a point of view about the structural economy transformations and the impact of the green economy, I invite to take the floor Miriam Fournier-Cassimi. She is the CEO of Sdg Goals. Welcome, Miriam.
Morning, everybody. Hello. I'm really more than happy to have the honor today to share this huge and important conference among Portugal and the European Union. Dear ministers, your excellencies, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending this huge conference to see how we should cooperate among Europe, Portugal, and Africa to develop a really sustainable economy in Africa. Should I share my screen? Oh, you were supposed to do so? Oh, you did. Thank you. Okay, it works, sorry. So Africa is the richest continent of natural resources. We have a huge and diversified potential of primary resources. Unfortunately, Africa is still in the dark. I am Myriam Fournier-Cassinou, and I created Sdg to address this issue. Sdg is a solar energy developer with innovative systems and solutions to address the specific needs of African countries, because we do have specific issues to address. We first have a lack of access to energy, as you highlighted. Almost 635 million of people are not connected to electricity. When they got energy, the energy is higher, much more expensive than the one in the rest of the world. For example, the gasoline price is 3 times higher compared, again, to the rest of the world. And even the companies that are the growth enabler in Africa, when they got access to the grids, they have a really huge and poor quality of existing sources of energy and connection. 69% of African companies declared to suffer from power outages. But I should remain optimistic, and really optimistic, because you all know this picture, right? With this small square in the Sahara, in Algeria, for example, we can reach and assure 100% of all the energy needs per year for the world. So the solar energy potential is really huge, and we can, of course, develop on it. The solar energy in Africa has a huge potential, as you may know, but we need money and we need investments for that. But we also need, from Portugal and from other countries, your competencies, your know-how, and your experience. We have 3,000 hours duration of sunshine of the continent. We need, according to the World Bank, 70 giga, sorry. That is the estimated Africa solar power capacity, which should be installed by 2030. That means we have a huge market to offer. It's already started, and we have already something like 5 to 6 gigawatt installed, but it's not enough to cover the huge needs of the countries. This is a forecasting of the solar energy in Africa coming from many institutional sources like IRENA or World Bank. It's clear that in the next 20 coming years, the main potential will come from solar energy. Things have already started. Let's take this curve, for example. We already had a huge growth, but many markets still have to be addressed. For example, only for the off-grid systems, we had already financed $11 billion for this access in energy, but we should get much more. The off-grid sector is already 1.75 billion annual market, serving more than 420 million users in Africa. But again, things still has to be developed. But we have a risk. And this risk in project finance and in financing solutions is really, really huge. Let's see in this graph the levelized cost of energy. I took, for example, Algeria last price, which was bidded for the last tender. We went up to $69 the megawatt hours. While in Portugal, last year, you reached a world record for less than $13 per megawatt hours. You've been able to develop a really smart solar energy system. And as you said in your promotion video, you have now more than half of energy sources done by renewable energy. So we need your experience, we need your know-how, and we need your cooperation know-how already. But of course, we need to cooperate and to create reach together, because you also need local partners. We know our markets, we know our doing business, ways of completing things and projects, and we have these huge markets. So that's the reason why, as a startups and entrepreneurs in Africa, of course, I rely on European equipments, European financing, European institutions to help us to go and to grow as you did in Europe. We also need Portuguese experience, because when we see that, that means that you have the possibilities to reach a really competitive price. Because today, Africa needs energy, yes, but as I mentioned, we need it to be affordable as well. Thanks to corporates, we've been able to deliver quite great KPIs already, but we need to go further. So that's the market. Today, we have for residential segments, solar home systems to help to have lights in a really complicated and concentrated village. And we have this huge utility, which is more product finance solutions, right? But what about corporates? Who is addressing the self-consumptions? They need electricity, they need a real, reliable and stable electricity, and then they'll get it with the grid. But this investment should not come from only utilities or residentials, small solutions. That's what Sdg decided to address. Thanks to innovative solar irrigation systems, we are able to address farmers' needs to make sure that they can ensure their own growth. Thanks to solar turnkey projects, we have been able to deliver to industries, to banking agencies, but also to other huge corporates what they are expecting. So they want to have a solar energy solution, so any source of energy, but that should deliver a good return on investment. We should not increase operational risk, so we should at least maintain it or reduce it. And we need to have for them agility, because they have already other issues to monitor and to manage. So they don't want to have another stress out. And they need sustainability solutions, because they have to reach their corporate social responsibility objectives. We also defined for militaries and telecom solar mobile generator, so we can quite quickly have solutions for energy everywhere, because some of the infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, are missing there. So those three kinds of solutions were really built up to address the specific African countries' energy needs. By Sdg, we are like a one-stop shop, and we address complex issues for customized solutions. We start from the design, when we have to have this adequacy of many energy flows, right? We have the grid, we have the oil genset, we have the batteries, and we have solar energy, and we should mix them up. Then, of course, we do manage the installation, the civil works, and the project. And we have here multi-engineering experts, electricity engineering, electronic one, IT ones, and also mechanical and civil works. And then for the operation and the commissioning, we still have to be really close to our clients to make sure that we have performance and we reach it. We have KPIs, and we deliver them dashboards to make sure that what they were expecting are really achieved. And then we can monitor their growth. We reach ROI, and we define new solutions for their new factories, for example. That's what we did already on the continent. And we needed for that. And we did that with our Portuguese and European partners. Why entrepreneurs in Africa still should be supported? Because we do have an economic impact. As a growth enabler, we need energy, right? And when we need energy, we are going to fight indirectly or directly poverty, which is like reducing terrorism risk. We are going to indirectly or directly create jobs. So that means we are going to fight famine. We also need to have this social impact to have long-term employment creation, because solar energy is really decentralized, so we can create local jobs. We have, of course, an environmental impact, thanks to the actions of raising awareness and promoting the green energy. Like other great companies in Africa, we are scalable, so we can have this recurring business in Africa, but also worldwide, because we were addressing really specific solutions for African business, which is really quite hostile. And we have local value creation, which could really be continent-wide ambitions. We all have in mind these Sdg Goals from the United Nations, like the affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities, as you mentioned already, and communities, but of course, climate actions. We raised awareness for many people already. We installed more than 1 mega already. We saved CO2. And we created indirect and direct jobs, and we gave access to energy to households. With this positive impact, green economy is really happening in Africa, and we need to speed it up together. Based on what we achieved already, we received many distinctions, and we created strategic partnership. For example, in Algeria, we have the chance to have, and I wanted to thank them, a very interesting team from the Portuguese diplomacy, and also we already have great companies like Chilusio ones, where they are specialized in buildings. We have been able to create these partnerships to make sure that we can deliver together a very attractive and affordable project together, but also reliable one. I think the screen is not shared anymore. Well, it could be okay if we don't get the screen. So I wanted just to thank again Mr. Ruiz, the ambassador in Algeria for Portugal country, Gonzalo, Monica, and all the teams that organized this event to make sure that we are delivering already in Algeria and in Africa quite great projects. But we need the open innovations that Portuguese company could deliver. You have the willingness, you have the startups, you have the know-how and the experience of this innovative, and we know our markets. We are locally based and we can really create this value together. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you so much. It was an important contribution to the seminar. It was a pleasure. Well, and we go forward with another topic, the relevance of the circular economy. That's it, the relevance of the circular economy in the sustainable economic development will be the next topic. And it was my pleasure, and it is my pleasure today present you the Emílio Pinheiro, the president of the EGF. Emílio, I met you at Angola, and we are here this morning to talk about Africa, the challenges, the opportunities. Welcome, and please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Rosalia. It is very true. We met in Angola some years ago, and we are here together today also to discuss Angola and Africa. And good morning, everybody. Good morning, distinguished guests. Good morning for the speakers. It's an honor for me to be here today, this morning. I am a businessman, and therefore I'm going to speak about the business and the business I'm involved. So today I'm going to show the capabilities of Motengil. EGF is a part of Motengil in the environment business, and how a strong home base is the foundation for a successful internationalization process focused especially in Africa. And in doing this, we contribute to the inception of a circular economy in these developing countries and create better living conditions for their population. Oops. Let me go back. Yes, okay. We are an internationally diversified group with a vision for the future. We are a market leader in waste management, being present in the entire value chain, from urban cleaning to waste collection, treatment and recovery, with technology developed for the generation of power, waste to energy, as we call it now, through to holding companies, SUMA, which means in English, Urban Services and Environment Services, and EGF, which manages 11 state concessions all over Portugal. As a group, we are very international, so we started here in this very tiny territory in Portugal. We went all over the world. In the last 10 years, we multiplied by 8 our presence all over the world. And in environment and service businesses, we have a turnover, not consolidated turnover, of 485 million euros, roughly 2/3 in Portugal and 1/3 all over the country, especially in Africa. So, what we do in Portugal here, we are a leader company group in Portugal in waste management. As I mentioned previously, we operate through two holding companies, SUMA and EGF. And these two companies serve accumulated figures, 10 million people, which is roughly the total number of population in Portugal. So there are double counting here. We collect and treat roughly 5.5 million tons of waste. We have 6,000 employees and 1,800 vehicles working in our operation. So it's a huge operation here in Portugal. In urban services, SUMA operates a catalog of services that covers the full range of services in waste collection, from municipal solid waste, green waste, bulky waste, construction and demolition waste, industrial waste, and so on. We have this full catalog of services, and also a full catalog of service in public cleaning, as we have in most of European cities, and we do all those services here. We also cover industrial and commercial waste. Here we are a full service provider. We have 6 infrastructures in the picture. We have a landfill for industrial and commercial waste deposition. And we also treat both non-hazardous and hazardous waste in our business. So, as you can see on the SUMA side, we cover the full range of services to municipalities, but also for private companies. In the EGF, as I mentioned before, EGF is an holding company that manages 11 state concessions, covering 174 municipalities here in Portugal and about 2/3 of the population. Mostly, EGF is responsible for the selective waste collection and treatment of all kinds of urban waste that is collected by the municipalities. By selective waste, we mean plastic containers and cans that goes from one basket, paper and cartoon for another, glass for another one, and now it's beginning the organic waste as a new line of business, and it is a national objective to develop this. In this picture, we have here the largest waste-to-energy plant in Portugal, near Lisbon. We, as a holding, we produce 445 gigawatts last year, and in this company, in this factory, in this plant itself, 271 gigawatts hour last year. This covers roughly a city of 200,000 people, which is huge. So, what we do? We have facilities to sort recycled materials. So, in this picture, this is our largest facility for sorting. That comes from the selective collection of waste. That's the largest. We have 20 of this all over Portugal, and then a number of infrastructures, which I would mention the number of vehicles, almost 450 vehicles that transport the waste from the streets into this plant. We also have mechanical and biological treatment facilities. We have 19 of these all over Portugal, and this is mainly focused to treat the general waste that comes from the household waste. And here we try to select recycled materials that after that are used in industries as a resource. We also produce biogas from the organic waste, and we produce compost for agriculture use. So actually we are very focused on this circular economy. Nobody likes to speak about this, but we have to have sanitary landfills. We have 27 of these, very modern, safe. And we not only keep waste here that is not able to be recycled, but we produce biogas, and from this gas we produce electricity that goes to the people. And finally, I would like to present our brand new plant. This is almost 30 million investment. This is MBT facility, a sorting facility, and also a landfill. This is going to open late this summer. We are now commissioning this facility. The best technology, the last technology that the world can offer is in this plant. So we try to go after what the world can offer as the best solutions. This is the last single investment in the environment or waste management for the last 6 to 10 years. And finally, we cannot do our job without environmental education and without being connected to the people. So that's a major part of our job. So we engage with them through two different ways. One is through education, especially in schools and with the children. And also we developed an app that received recently a prize. We were very honored to receive that prize for a very relevant newspaper here. And it aims to encourage people to correct the separation of the household waste. It is a game that gives prizes to those who recycle. It uses the most advanced technologies, such as artificial intelligences. And that's to connect us to the people, to the persons. At the end of last year, we developed an advertised campaign, which the slogan was, "The future of our planet, of the planet, is not recyclable." So to make people more aware of the situation and the things we had to do. So we have a strong domestic base. We are leaders. And this is like football, as it is very much discussed these last couple of days. But if we have a strong domestic base, if we win the domestic league, we can go to the international league. That's what I'm going to present you, and especially in Africa. We have a full range of different operations. I'm going to begin with Angola. As Rosalia mentioned, I lived there for 11 and a half years. I was CEO of a very large bank there, so I miss them very much, and I suffer with them very much in these days with this crisis of this rainfall that is suffered a lot in Luanda. So we have there a very nice operation started in 2008 and covers about 2 million inhabitants. We have there 1,200 employees, almost 300 vehicles, and we do collection and the cleaning of the streets. That's a very large operation and wonderful, I can assure you. In Mozambique, hello, Minister, we have there a very small operation, much smaller. We would like to increase it, but it is similar to Angola in a smaller case. We collect the waste and we clean the streets. Oops, I'm sorry. That's Mozambique. And now Ivory Coast. In Ivory Coast, we have two different businesses. Here, it is a landfill, brand new, that we developed there in Abidjan. It started very recently, 3 years ago. And it is going very, very well, and this goes together with an operation of collecting waste and cleaning streets. So here in this different company, we cover 4.6 million people, and we have more than 2,000 people working for us, more than 200 vehicles. Also in Oman, that's a very different operation, because here it's the only operation that Motengil is not present. So it's by our own. We have there an operation that is also going very, very well, waste collection, street cleaning, and we are managing this sanitary landfill. I also bring Brazil to the table, not only because they speak Portuguese. We have there an operation. It is very similar and very adaptable to the African needs. So what I would like to bring here is what we learn. Number one, act local and be very community-oriented. Engage with the circular economy that is developing there. Invest in the right technology, not necessarily the newest technology, but the right technology for the local conditions. And also improved sustainable economic development. And finally, always look forward. If you are in Africa, please look forward, never look back. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope that this was useful for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emílio Pinheiro, for bringing us the big picture about EGF. Another very important subject is energy sustainability in the African industry. And to tell us about it, we have with us António Nunes. António Nunes is the member of the board of Angola Cables, and António is here with me in Lisbon. Welcome, António. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, to congratulate you for the event and to thank you for the invitation that you have done to me to share with you my 20 years of experience in Africa on the development of the African market. So I will start saying that today we live in a village. And this pandemic situation have really presented to us and demonstrated that everything that is happening with us in Africa will have very big consequences in the other continents and in the other people. So we don't live anymore alone. And presenting some of the facts that will help us to understand what I'm trying to present to you and to share with you, I bring here the SDH, and this SDH, I will talk about two main topics, which is the clean and affordable energy and the climate actions. So today, as we know, we are living in a situation that everything that is happening and this environment, the factions of the environment, we are all facing the situation and are all living in the process that are related to that. Africa is experiencing, what I want to say is, bearing that in mind, I'm coming down to the situation of Africa. So today we are experiencing in Africa very dramatic growth of population, and my previous colleagues of the presentation have already mentioned that. We can see that very, very soon Africa will be with a population of 2.5 billion inhabitants. What brings that we are living in a situation that we have to guarantee that most of these people that today are living without energy have to solve the problem. So the question here is that should we take care about the sustainability of the environment, or should we take care about the survival of our families? So for us, in Africa, in order to survive and even to cook food for our kids, we have to burn the forests. And that situation is not because we are against the ambient, it's because we have to survive. So that situation and the production of the CO2 is not only a question to us, it's a question to the complete environment of the globe. Means that it's not only a problem of Africa, it's a problem of the world. So if we don't face that in that perspective, what we can see is that since we are growing up in terms of population, and even our economies are also in accordance to a study of the IFC and Google, we can see that even the economics of Africa is also growing. We have to face that in a completely different perspective. Means that if we don't take care about the situation in Africa, all of the world will suffer with that. And this is what I'm starting my presentation say. This is the question of we living in a village. So what's happening to us will be happening to everybody else. But the reality in Africa is still completely different. So most of the population and most of the problems in Africa is still a problem from the energy sector coming, and in the sub-Saharan region, half of the population is still living without electricity. So I'm an electrical engineer, and I was working my 20 last years in the telecom industry and promoting the digitalization of Africa. So I work in a telecom operator, developing the infrastructure of that particular operation. And just to be able to develop the mobile sector in Angola, where I come from, we have been installing more than 2,500 generators all over the country. So it means that before we even install a telecom network, we have to install an electrical power system in order to support the business of the telecom industry. And afterwards, I was also working in a submarine cable company. I operated that have cables in the Atlantic region. And in Angola, to support that operation, even in other countries in Africa where our cable also was touching, we have to get generators supporting that infrastructure. So again, saying that if the African economy is growing and if the population of Africa is growing, we have to bear in mind that all these problems will come to all of us in the rest of the world. So we have to support the capabilities of that in a completely different way. So in terms of capacity of clean energy production, Africa have a huge potential. And today we still are in a very, very lower basis of that particular production. So what is missing, and what we need to be transforming that opportunities in real business? So we need political wills, and that political will is not only from the African view, but a completely general view about what we're going to do in the world, okay? Because we need clean energy, and that clean energy is the one be able to support the development of the African and of the population of the world. We need a vision of profitability. What I mean with that is if we don't have, and if we don't implement systems that will generate sustainability to the local people, and means they will generate enough revenue for them to live, then that seems not will be sustainable in terms of the economy. The other issue is the cost of the systems. Of course, solar and wind systems, the price of the equipment are dropping a lot in the last years with the promotion of some of the countries in the world supporting that energy, which is really very positive, because now we will be able to develop that systems in regions like Africa in a very efficient way. The other point that for me is quite important is the incentives of the banking. So we see now in Europe already some of the political definitions for incentives of the banking system to support the development of that particular areas, because when we are looking to Africa, most of the systems that we are installing there are hydric systems, very big power plants, and that very big power plants are normally supported by the big banks of the world to the governments. But the fact is today, with all these environment changes, we are starting having problems with the water supply systems too. So if we don't see that particular things in that perspective, and we put our energy sources on top of the water sources that we have today, and if that water source starts to fail, and then we see a collapse of the economies, because we don't have water and then we don't have power. Because if we are able to produce clean power, we can produce water from the sea without any problems. And then we already see some of the countries doing that. So in my view, another issue is that what is the big difference that we have between Africa and the rest of the world? The first thing is that we don't have a very big legacy in Africa. So, of course, we have systems, we have transporting systems for power. I myself come from a power system, from the network transportation. And I know what is the cost of that and what is the need of that. In Africa, we don't have big legacies. So we have an opportunity to develop new systems with a very efficient way in order to repeat all the mistakes that we have done in other environments. The other thing is, since we have a quite large already communication network, means that the power system could follow that demand. Because one of the things that I learned from the telecom network is that we was able to find solutions and to have that particular needs located where the power is needed, so where the telecommunications are. Because in Africa, we have a quite big difference between the populations, where we have a huge area, but the population of Africa is concentrated in the main cities. So the rest of the continent, of the rest of the countries are quite empty. So we could not have solutions similar to the solutions developed in the development countries because they are not efficient. So we have here the opportunity to have a different approach to the problem. The other thing is the grid configuration, as I already told, it should be different from the one existing today. So the World Economic Forum, for example, people on the World Economic Forum have already made some research, and they have mentioned that if we are able to have your production lines of the production systems close to your demand, so less than 20 kilometers, your efficiency of production will be very high, and your cost will be much, much sustainable. So again, when we develop these systems, because they will be new, we can be and take in consideration the SDGs. And the other very important point is that since we are understanding that we are in a new phase of digitalization, economic digitalization, and Africa is probably one of the most populated countries where the economy is growing. So we have here another very interesting issue, is that Africa will be a continent where the digital economy will be the most sustainable one. So it means that we are now with the conditions to create a completely new environment and not looking to the past, but learning with the past and creating for Africa a completely new environment that will be more sustainable and will be able to support the development of the new economies. And this study is not from me, so IFC and Google already have been demonstrated that the demand of internet and the business, the economy, digital economy in Africa is growing dramatically and have a huge potential that we could be rising up all these conditions. So, as I mentioned before, these networks will have different configurations because cities are overpopulated and then they need their proper systems to support the industry and the inhabitants that are looking on that particular region, but the remote areas are in a completely different way. So what we have to learn and develop is how could we merge these two different sources of grids and implement that in a very efficient way. So again, for me, one of the important things is bearing in mind that these digital hubs will be supported by this new sustainable source of energy that have to be developed for that particular region. Thank you very much. This is my contribution. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Antoni. It was a great contribution. Thank you so much. Please stay with us for the next part of the conference with an important roundtable. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming with us to the next part of the business seminar about Portugal and Africa. And now we have a round table with 5 important speakers. It was invited 5 speakers with a lot of experience in Africa, and the topic for the next debate is exports and investment as a drive for sustainable economic development. Are invited to the debate Taslim Ngom, the CEO of Saturn Group. Are invited to Nelson Pires, the General Manager of Jabba Recordati Portugal. Also Kola Karim, the CEO of Shoreline Energy International. Manuel Mota, with me in Lisbon. Manuel Mota is the CEO of Motengil Africa, and also Mohamed Salim Fakir, the Executive Director at the African Climate Foundation at Green Cape. Welcome to all, to the 5 speakers. Thanks for coming. And I start with Taslim. I start with you. You are the CEO of Saturn, an engineering, construction, energy and development group in Francophone Africa, and focused in real estate and infrastructure. The company creates platforms to analyze and optimize operational and economic performance. Ask you, what business opportunities do you find today in Africa despite the pandemic?
Thank you. Good morning to all the esteemed guests and my co-panelists. We're very thankful and humbled to be part of this conversation. I want to take the opportunity to thank His Excellency, the Ambassador of Portugal to Senegal, Mr. Vitor Serrano, and his wonderful team, with a special mention to our good friend, Mr. Thiago Bastos, for his assistance in helping us connect with the Portuguese counterparts to create value together on the continent. Like you said, our company is over 20-year-old family business operating in Africa, Francophone West Africa in particular, trying to create value through urban development. What are the opportunities that we're seeing? I guess I can give some indicative numbers to help put that into context. Following the pandemic, our government has declared that there was an economic recovery plan that is worth over 20 billion euros that is planned, for which a third of it needs to come from the private sector. So that already gives you a sense of the size of the opportunities here following the pandemic. For us ourselves, CERTEM, we're looking at over 500 million euro worth of projects that are at various stages of maturity in our pipeline. And I'll just give you 3 indicative projects that are already in flight, where we're actually building a business tower. It's over 40,000 square meters. That's a 60 million euro investment. We're doing a housing complex that's over 450 housing units. That's over 40 million euro. And we're building infrastructure, passenger infrastructure around the rapid train, which is a massive 1.5 billion euro investment that's undergoing here in Senegal. So I think our co-panelists, the presenters earlier have talked about the underlying trends in Africa that were unabated by the pandemic, which is demographic growth and high rate of urbanization. So our cities need to be built. They need to be built sustainably to function well, and they need to be connected to each other, to production centers outside of the cities and to other cities in the rest of the world. That's the opportunity of Africa. We're seeing it here in Senegal. We're seeing it everywhere in the region. And we're very eager to help address those needs. But we're very aware that in order to do it properly, our capabilities need to be strengthened and our capacities need to be extended and augmented. And that only goes through partnerships. And one of the prime candidates for those partnerships, obviously, is Portugal. We have a common saying that Portugal are the builders of Europe. We want to be the builders of Africa, and we think that solid partnerships with Portugal, amongst other potential partners, will help us get there.
Aslim, thank you so much. Nelson Pires, you are the General Manager of Djaba Recordati Portugal and UK, Ireland, Portuguese-speaking countries, Nigeria and Mauritania. Djaba Recordati is one of the most innovative companies in the outpatient market. In European, how the drugs, the medicines can help to drive for a development in Africa? And how can the Djaba contribute to?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation to AICEP, to SIP, and to all the colleagues that we have here. Djaba Recordati is an European company, so it's a pharmaceutical European company. We are based in Milan, even though we are owned by several investment funds, and we are a company that values 9 billion euros in general, I think today, with the value market share. But the added value of Djaba Recordati to these markets, I think, is quite relevant, because you cannot have development, you cannot have social stability without having good health in people. And if you remember, 20 years ago, we lived less 10 years than we live now. So, but in Africa, you still have people that dies under the age of 52 years, while in Europe, you have people that dies usually above 80 years. So what pharmaceutical industry, namely the Portuguese pharmaceutical industry, through Pharma Portugal, that is an association, it is a platform of pharma companies to drive the export, but not only the export, the internationalization of the pharma industry to other countries. We try to give the same level of opportunities and health technology to European countries, but mostly to African and Latin American countries. And I think this is the added value. The main problem is that until 20 years ago, we saw medicines as a commodity. So we were traders of medicine from Portugal to other countries. And since 20 years ago, I think a lot because of AICEP work that created several platforms of understanding between countries, what we are trying to do is that we are trying not only to export, but to upscale the technology and to try to develop in local markets the same possibility to develop. That is a lot under development, that is true, but at least to manufacture and to have the same level of control, quality control for the medicines. What I think is the main problem I think it's probably a Portuguese problem. We have very good functional capacities, but I think we should improve our level of organization so that we can cluster the targets that we want when we are focused in some markets in Africa. And the other part, I think, is the human capital that we have in Africa. I was born in Angola, so I'm an African man. Even though I travel through all Africa, what we see is that there are a lot of opportunities to install the same technology that we have in Europe in Africa, so that people have access to medicines that are low cost but with the highest quality. The problem is that the capital, the human capital, is an issue that we have to develop in Africa. The second part is, of course, what we spoke before, that has a lot to do with energy and water, because energy and water is a fundamental process to manufacture medicines. And the third, I believe, is somehow influenced by also the Portuguese culture, is when you develop a manufacturing plant or you invest in a country, and we have a manufacturing plant in Tunisia, my company, the biggest issue is that you have to think long term. To build a factory, you have 3 years. To start the factory, you have 5 years. You have to invest 50 or 60 million euros. And then after 4 years, you can start manufacturing the products and selling. So, or you think in the midterm, and you think how to leave the technology in those countries and to train people and to develop their skills, or it will be an issue. But in average, I think without health, without medicine, and without the health technology, it's very difficult to have the stability that we spoke. I think, and I will finish now, I think most of the previous speakers spoke about circular economy from the environment point of view. I would speak in circular economy from the investment point of view. I think companies from Portugal should invest in African countries and in specific African countries. So we should create some clusters and leave the profits in those countries so that you can have a circular economy, so that this investment will generate more development, this development will generate more investment, and of course at the end companies, and I think most of all citizens and societies, will gain a lot from the investment. But as you can see, and COVID was the fantastic example, without health it's impossible to have a healthy economy, a healthy society. And in Africa, we are not only thinking of COVID, we are thinking of malaria, that is an issue that is quite important and that kills a lot of people in Africa. You were speaking of the birth rate is high, but there are a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of young babies dying when they are below 3 months age. So, and this is the added value that I think pharma companies, namely the Portuguese pharma companies, that I think have the biggest added value compared to all the others in the world. We can manage cultural diversity that the others don't. And I think this is clearly an added value. And after we have the language as an added value for this country. But I think without health, and the health is allowed by pharma, by medical doctors, by knowledge, by technology, it's impossible to build up what we were speaking until now, the 2 hours previous, without to have a healthy economy and a healthy society. And this is what I believe Pharma Portugal, and namely my company, is trying to do in these markets.
Mm-hmm. Nelson, Antonio Nunes from Angola Cables tell us we need more political strategical to be straight to the point and to have more relationship between Portugal and Africa. Do you agree?
I fully agree, even though I think that what the governments have to do is to create the right environment for companies and entrepreneurs to invest. I don't think it should be public money to be invested. In some strategic issues, yes. In health, I think what the public money has to do is, or the public decision is, to create the right environment. For instance, from the tax point of view, from the customs point of view, from the transport point of view, this has to be created as a global environment for companies to do business. But after the investment has to be private. Why? Because the research and development is private. So the patents are private, and the companies have to take the risk. So I think the governments have to create, and somehow in some African countries this doesn't exist. This is why this type of activities is so important, because from these activities you can create the needs and the platform for the future, so that the governments are aware that the companies may invest if they have the right environment. I think AICEP is doing a very nice job putting companies in contact with other companies in the local markets to develop and to create the right environment. But I agree, governments and countries have to do the right job, but the right job is not to invest substituting the private ones, because the privates have to take the risk in a calculated way for the midterm to have the return of the investment, of course, but they have to get the risk. I don't think it's the countries. The countries have to prepare the country for investment, for development, not to substitute the investors, I think.
Thank you, Nelson, for sharing with us your view about that topic. Kola Karim, you know very well the Motengile and the EGF, you know very well Portugal too, and Africa, of course. You are focused in Nigeria and in the West Africa, and you are an expert in energy, of course, and let me say, maybe you are a kind of special one. What I mean is you are a young global leader, 2008, and congratulations for that. So I have to ask you, what global young leader can see in terms of opportunities in energy in Africa?
Thank you, and then good morning to everyone, to my fellow panelists and to the whole organization of this event. I think events like this is very important to continue to bring up the stories of what Africa and Europe can do, and more especially what Portugal has been pushing the last couple of years. When we talk of energy, we are a family-owned business. Our focus is energy and infrastructure. We are one of the largest independent oil producers in Nigeria. It's been a very strategic and investment business for us over the last couple of years, but the pandemic has actually shown the position where energy in itself, what we saw last year with the complete collapse of global prices in oil and gas. And that in itself has taught us all a lesson that the world we're more connected globally than what we are. And the global pandemic has just shown that and shown the weaknesses in the global disconnection in itself, because once consumption disappears, then who are you going to sell the energy to? Be it oil, be it gases, and this is what the situation has been. But be that as it may, what we have seen is Africa's potential with its young population, with the ever-growing need and quest for energy, ever-growing industrial output that Africa is looking forward to growing its capital base. Energy sufficiency is of utmost importance. And that's where we've played a very important role in trying to connect with other partners, be it in Africa, in trying to expand our business. But more importantly is the infrastructural connect to do with energy. And that is where we see an amazing relationship with companies like Motengile, who we've partnered with in Nigeria in the infrastructure space to support not only energy, but to support complete infrastructural development, like in rail, roads, etc. So this is the importance of what we are trying to do. We see that as an amazing connect, and we see the same issues most of Africa has. We all have the same problems: is young population, dearth of infrastructural development, and this in itself is the opportunity. What we have in abundance in Africa is huge natural resources. But what is important is being able to partner to build in the connect onshore in Africa to actually multiply effect and creativity around expanding the natural resources onshore. A typical example is Nigeria is the 5th largest oil producer in the world. But we import all our petroleum products because we don't have functioning refineries. Dangote is seeing that opportunity and is building one of the largest refineries in the world in Nigeria. That is an opportunity. And we can see this in so many other silos of businesses that's opportune on the continent that could be a complete interconnect in building global businesses of standard in Africa, in countries like ours, and in several countries in Africa, because we could take opportunities in building a market that's ready-made for very young people. And where the global position in technology is going, Africa's showing more than ever that it could leapfrog technology. Now you see what's happening with mobile telephony, internet and internet connections. These are the great opportunities that Africa is scaling, and the youthful population of Africa is trying to make a difference in connecting infrastructure and energy.
Thank you so much. Let's talk with Manuel Mota, is here with me. Thanks for coming. You are the leader of Mota-Engil Africa. Previously, you was a member of the board of Mota-Engil Europe Engineering and Construction, and before you went Chief Executive Officer of Mota-Engil Central Europe, which includes responsibility for Poland, Czech Republic, and other Central European countries. In relation to these markets, what kind of positive differences can you find in Africa?
It's those are some complete different markets.
Yes, I imagine.
think, Portugal is a more mature market. Poland and the Central Eastern countries are developing markets, or almost developed. Most of them as developed as Portugal nowadays, but 10 or 20 years ago we were far behind. And Africa is a country there's everything to do, to build, develop, to realize. So it's a continent of opportunities. Okay, and it's a continent of not only the future but the present. There are very different regions in Africa, I would say countries. It's very difficult, and for people to understand Africa, it's not the same thing. Even for us here in Portugal, we look at Angola and Mozambique, which are the biggest Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, and they're completely different. And the same goes from Nigeria to Cameroon, and so on, so on. So the way we have to look into the continent first starts with integration and trading between the countries. All of the way in the past that the economies were developed were to export from the colonial times. All the infrastructure that exists in the country, and there's no interconnection. There is very little interconnection between countries, and all of these countries were dimensioned to export internationally. So for us to be able to sustainably develop those economies, and the inter-African trade, the free trade agreement in Africa is fundamental, because the easiest way for you to grow is to grow together. And that was a key factor for us in Europe with the European Union, and that is something that, in a certain way, Africa is a step that is trying to develop with the African Union and with the free trade agreement. And today you see that there is a lot, most of the infrastructure that today are being developed, they are interconnecting countries. A big example is the contract that we just signed in Nigeria in start of this year, which is to connect, is going to connect the interland countries, starting with Niger up with the ocean in Lagos. So it's a railway line that goes from Lagos to Maradi, which is in Niger. So these are projects which are not only focused in developing the country itself and opening the inner parts of Nigeria for exports, but also for trade between countries. And a lot of projects we have spoken about in the ECOWAS region, the highway that's connecting all the countries. So there is a lot to do. A key factor for that is also formation, training, and knowledge. Education is a key factor, but that also comes with investment. So there is a big difference between these countries. There are obviously exceptions. There's a big economical disequilibrium between many countries in Africa, and typically the countries inland are less developed and the landlocked countries. So there is this equilibrium that needs to be also established, and the key, and it's an opportunity also for many of the countries which have access to the sea to be able to help these countries.
And for you as a CEO, how the sustainability can be a key factor too in your business?
It is definitely a key factor for us. There are many ways of sustainability. It's a complex word. It's even more complex when you're talking about infrastructure, building roads. It involves a lot of natural resources. So what we've been doing is to implement transversal practices across the whole continent. Currently, we are fully certified in terms of the company and the way we operate equally across all the countries. We are optimizing a series of processes in terms of machine equipment, automatization. We operate a lot of mining contracts for big clients where our equipments are already starting to be operated manually, which brings a lot of fuel efficiency. In terms of the projects, one of the key factors that we've been trying to develop in the bigger projects as we are is to get involved in the early stage, so that the environmental social impact assessment is something that we can contribute and add value from the start to this project, to make sure that the communities are benefiting from the project, that the communities are not being mistreated by the relocation that many times has to happen. So these are all key factors which we try to anticipate. So when we speak about the project in Nigeria, is something that we started to work on it 3 years ago, so that we can today start construction. When you're talking about in Europe, this is something that is an acquired fact. We just go to the tender, and the day after we can start construction if we win, or after a month, or after 2 months. So this is a process that is ongoing, and way we look at the way we approach opportunities in Africa is to get involved very early stage to guarantee that financing is possible, because that is a key factor also for financing, which is sustainability, social impact. So all of these items we kind of specialized in them in terms of our team, so that we can deliver a project in a sustainable manner.
Mm-hmm. And the financial support is more and more difficult without pandemic, or with pandemic it's more and more difficult?
It's more difficult. We have to be pragmatic, because if we know what we suffered here in Portugal, and we know a lot of the small and medium enterprises disappeared. The government made a huge effort to sustain the economy, and this is not possible in Africa. So there was a big challenge, because and completely different approach. Again, there were countries that never closed, never went into a lockdown, and the country next door was completely closed with no access. Couldn't go in, you couldn't go out. In some cases, you couldn't even leave your city. So the approaches were completely different, depending on the economic capacity of the countries. So to all of them, there was a huge impact financially. The fact that the most developed nations which finance for multilateral agencies, a lot of these projects also have their financial strain, so it brings a more complex environment. But I believe that it also opened many eyes, we say in Portugal, to the fact that a lot of investment is needed to support these countries, to support their development.
Thank you, Manuel. Taslim, you returned to Africa after spending the first half of your career in the United States, a great experience too, and you worked at multinationals in the financial and technology sector. Why did you return? What attracts you as an executive, as an investor? For you, what's the key point?
Well, there's two parts of the answer. The first, which is more a softer side, is a sense of responsibility. So my father started this business 23 years ago, and he had a vision of developing Africa for the better longer term. So there was a sense of responsibility for us to kind of carry on that vision and continue building upon the legacy that he started developing. That's the softer side. But really, on the more objective side of things, I mean, like it's been told since this morning, and we're reinforcing here, this is really a continent of opportunities, and this is a continent of future. I won't come back to the demographics. I won't come back to the fact that tomorrow consumption market is here. I won't come back to the fact that everything needs to be built. But really, if you wanna impact positively the trajectory of the world moving forward, you have to think about Africa. So those are some of the things that made me come back, and I really thought that some of the mindsets and skill set that I was able to develop overseas could be very useful in contributing to those efforts. And I want to come back to something that Mr. Pires said, which is very interesting when we talk about sustainability, because this is what we're talking about longer term. It's good to apply that to finance and economics as well, because that's one thing we tend to lose sight of. And all in all, it's just that you want to be able to come back. We talked about education, we talked about formation and the level of skill sets that need to be up to par with the challenges locally. We need a lot of our youth and talent that was able to get training and exposure to the way of doing things better overseas to come back and try to contribute to raising the skill set locally and building also economic activity. So those are kind of the two main reasons why I've been back. And it's like you said, it's been almost 8 years now. Don't regret it, and very excited about the future.
And about the opportunities you see at Africa, what attracts you more to 2021 strategy for this year and the next year?
Well, like I said, we're really before the pandemic, we're in a very fast upward trajectory. And I'm going to focus just on the markets on which I am. We are rather as a company, and that's Senegal and Francophone West Africa. We lag behind the rest of the continent in terms of economic advancement, I believe. But our trajectory was really nice in terms of development and creating kind of widespread prosperity. The pandemic kind of put a halt to that, but we need to get back to that growth trajectory. So really the strategy is position ourselves as a partner to private sector investors locally and globally to come and contribute, building the major blocks of the urban fabric. I'm talking about very structuring projects and connectivity and power and all the infrastructure around the cities to make them sustainable longer term. We want to work with private investor and partners, but we also want to work with the public sector. Again, I'm coming back to what Mr. Pires said. Their responsibility is really to set up the environment so that we as economic operators can come and contribute to our best. So it's working with them, helping them think about the best policies to do that, and partnering with them on projects that are under their responsibilities to make them to make sure that they're done and they're viable. So that's kind of the strategy. We want to be a partner. We want to be a partner of development, and we want to strengthen our African cities. And we don't constrain ourselves to just one single market as a country. We're thinking as an integrated block of West Africa, Francophone West Africa, and the capital that we need to build up. So
that's it. Thank you, Taslim. Nelson Pires, your guidelines as a company are the sustainability, innovation, globalization, diversity. In your opinion, how to translate all of this into business in Africa? And now with this context of the pandemic especially.
That's a very smart question. I think that's what we've been doing, I think, until 10 years ago was to sell products, medicines, machines, whatever, but medicines, mostly in the Portuguese-speaking countries. There are two markets that, from the point of view of Portugal, pharma, are very risky because they are a lot developed, and the two are Nigeria and South Africa. So we are quite focused in the rest of the countries. But Nigeria and South Africa, because of the size, because they have their own infrastructure of pharmaceuticals, and we don't have the necessary dimension to enter in these markets, but the rest we have. So what do I think? I think that these values that you mentioned, we can translate them, they have to bring business, but before business, they have to get fair business, ethical business, sustainable business. And at the end, our shareholders and the rest of the stakeholders have to get their dividends for the investment they did. What I think we need to do now is not only to sell products, but to transfer technology. And before technology, we have to transfer know-how. Because I think these are the two key issues that we have to do in the markets where Portugal wants to be present. For instance, Portugal had recently the approval from FDA, the American regulator, of the first clinical study to be developed for a specific product that is diabetic food. Is the first biologic product in the world. So we have the know-how, we have the skills. We usually don't know how to translate this into money. So we sell our research in a very early stage, and all the other companies after try to gain money. Now we have some opportunities to put the products on the market. And instead of doing the clinical trials like this product that is for the diabetic foot in Israel, where it is being done, we could do it in Senegal, we could do it in Angola, we could do it. But why do we do it in Israel? Because the procedure to approve the clinical study is fast, and all the health system is well developed in terms of IT. So we have a lot of information from the patients in terms of computing, so we can follow and track the patients. And imagine that the clinical study brings two things, money for the country, but also innovation, because you start to treat patients in an early stage. So what I think the pharma companies in Portugal will have to do, and there are other companies that are very active, is to transfer the technology for sure, not only to sell medicines, because sell medicine is fundamental, because without them people die, or at least they have a lot less quality of life. But for sure, we have to transfer know-how. And these two things is, once again, what will do that our business in the midterm will have the return of investment that we need to continue to invest. And once again, we have to, and this is something that some countries in Africa have to understand, each investor invests for two reasons. One, to build a better society, and the second, to gain money. So we have to repatriate the dividends. So it is very difficult for a Portuguese investor to invest in a country in Africa or in the US if he cannot repatriate the dividends and the profit that he does in some specific countries. That's what we were speaking before. So the investor has to follow the risk, has to do the investment, and the government has to prepare the country for investors. That is to create the rules so that the investors do it in a sustainable, ethical way, so that the country can increase. But I think that these two things are fundamental. The values that you mentioned can be applied so that we can gain money in a sustainable way. We'll have to do it into two ways. First, transfer of technology. This is the easy part, but transfer of know-how is the difficult part. And unfortunately, what we see in Africa is that if you go to Portuguese-speaking countries, all patients prefer Portuguese products. But when you look at the price of Portuguese products and you look at the price, sorry for the Chinese and the India and China prices, they are very low priced compared to Portuguese. But when you speak of quality, I think the quality is quite different, because in Europe and in the US and in some African countries, the quality, I don't say that all the companies, India and China, have low quality, but some of them have. Some of them are exporting fake products that in Europe is impossible because you have serialized packages. But this is something that we need to transfer the know-how, transfer the information. That is, you have to get good quality products from India, from Portugal. And this is something that will bring in the medium term the return of the investment or the profit that you mentioned through the values. But one thing that we need to do is, if you want to win money, you cannot be only be a trader. You have to be an investor. You have to develop the country so that your business can develop with the country. And I think this is some philosophy that the Portuguese investors developed, but recently. And I think this is, I'm speaking of pharma, not of construction, not of energy, that did it recently. And now we are thinking in a different way, that is to invest locally in some countries where we know that we have the right environment to get profit, but also to have the social responsibility of building a better society, because I think this is one of the values that we defend a lot. We save lives. So this is clearly what we want.
Nelson,
Sorry,
thank you so much. I want to listen Mohamed, but first ask you to you, Manuel. Do you want would you like to comment Nelson Pires, and if you agree with this point of view?
Yes, I think there's the status of the quality of the products and investment and
but the difficulties to dividends, the profits and the return of the money.
That's a key factor for many investors. I think a lot of companies, to a certain aspect, they avoid just because of that factor, because they look into the continent and say, I'm never going to be able to take the profits. But it depends a lot also on the size of the investment, mm-hmm. on the employment generation capacities. All of these countries have investment agencies which will get tax benefits, tax exemptions. You will have access to hard currency for purchase of either materials, either resources for you to supply to your business, and you'll have access to dividends. So, in many ways, it depends a lot on the country. Again, it's true in some countries. It's not so true in others. And I give an example: Rwanda, which by GDP is one of the smallest countries in Africa. It's impressive what they've done there, the way they have made super sustainable economy, mm-hmm. The way they have transformed the country, and there's no investor who has difficulty in access to foreign currency to pay dividends. So it depends a lot. The countries have to allocate the funds to better manage their funds, and if they don't better manage their funds, they will have difficulties to generate hard currency for investors to pay for their needs, pay for their costs. Many of them are international costs, and then to export their dividends. So it depends. It goes from country to country. There are rich countries in Africa which you don't get access to hard currency, but there are countries in Rwanda which you invest and your investment is protected and you will get access to hard currency. So again, it's very difficult to speak about Africa.
Maybe the first lesson will be adapt your strategy for once.
Even in the most, I would say that as a region that works more similarly is the West Africa because of the CFA, mm-hmm. but still between those countries there are many differences. And every time you approach a new country, you have to build a new strategy. It's like maybe 20 years ago spoke about Central Eastern Europe. How does it compare? Poland and Czech Republic were so different 20 years ago, and Poland and Germany are so different 20 years ago, and both of these economies developed and they are much similar today. So this comes with time, and it comes with investment and with experience and knowledge. So it's in Africa, it's 54 countries, 54 systems almost.
Mohamed, we have to talk about climate, of course, because it's another key factor today for all the investors and investments, exports, everything. Talking about the climate change, in your opinion, what are the big challenges in Africa in terms of resources and climate? Because it's your area, you are an expert in these topics, and how to grow as a country, as a continent, without spoiling.
So I think I wanted to just share a number of perspectives, because it's true that Africa's emissions are low comparatively to China, Europe, India, or for that matter, the US. Africa is very important in three dimensions. The one is that it has very important critical minerals that are crucial for the development of lots of different clean technologies, including links to digital technologies. For example, if you consider things like lithium, copper, cobalt, coltan, rare earths, and so on. These are critical minerals with overlapping industries. One of the overlapping industries, of course, is clean energy, and the other is digital technologies, which both of them are of vital interest to Africa. The second part is that there are huge, vast forests in Africa, some of the most pristine and untapped or undisturbed forests, particularly in the Congo region, act as carbon sinks. So they play a very important role in the capture, natural capture of carbon, if you want it. And there's clearly of great importance to the global efforts to reduce carbon emissions around the world. And the third, I think that we are in the throes of a very strong divide between having vast energy resources, in this case gas, oil, coal, versus the growing importance and cost reduction in cleaner technology, particularly renewables, of which Africa also, by the way, has vast resources. If you consider hydro, geothermal, wind, solar, and biomass, we have plenty of that. But we have this paradox in which the dominance of coal, oil, and gas has not unlocked greater diversification and access to cheaper energy sources, particularly electrification of the African continent. If I give you two countries statistically which have recently discovered oil and gas, if you look at Uganda and Tanzania, both those countries have levels of electrification of less than 20%, but they are also potentially going to be very important exporters of gas and oil. And my colleagues from Nigeria, Senegal, etc., would also talk about the challenge between exports of energy resources and the ability to integrate the benefits from these energy resources in building electrification systems within the country and in the region is fundamental. Why is energy important? Well, if you don't have reliable energy sources that are cheap, affordable, you cannot expand the diversification of Africa's economy. We are not just talking about export of commodities. We're really fundamentally talking about manufacturing, whether they're pharmaceutical manufacturing, expansion of the agricultural value chain, for that matter, other forms of industrial development, whether it's a refinery or any other types of activity. Cheaper and forms of electrification is very crucial for broader economic diversification. So that allows for expansion of business, allows for the populace to be able to expand their opportunities outside of the informal economy through entrepreneurship. And if we have greater access to energy, we can also expand the penetration of digital technologies. And digital technologies is effectively becoming just as important as energy access, because digital technologies allows for access to new knowledge, improvements in productivity, and also integration of supply chains and the rest of the productive sector within African economies. And that would have the consequence of being able to enhance economic development. The share of income would not just go to only an exclusive club, if you want, but you will broaden the base of income spread. And that's also fundamental to effectively also supporting the demand for greater electrification on the African continent. So this puzzle of the paradox between vast resources and the lack of cheap energy access, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, is the work that we are trying to do as the African Climate Foundation and also at Green Cape, because we believe that if we don't solve this puzzle, the model of Africa's development would continue to be very strongly one-sided, which is largely extractive exports of commodities, mineral commodities and energy commodities, but very minimal or even slow development in other aspects of the economy. So you have this vast gap of extractives. You've got a growth in service economy, and those are highly dependent on how well extractives are doing. And then you got this big gap of low value add, lack of manufacturing, and the three of these have to be integrated. So, I think that the room for massive expansion of electrification is there. We have to do that because our population is doubling. We do need much more better economic integration between the commodity sectors and the rest of the economy. And we have to enable upliftment through both energy access and access to digital solutions and so on. Fundamental to that is actually lowering the cost of capital. Government has a big role to play, and I think both foreign and local businesses have an important role to play in ensuring the right policy reforms and the ability to finance these energy solutions through innovation and so on can be undertaken. For one last word, I think when you think about energy, it is often assumed that the solution can only be at the national level, but we can think of more creative approaches of thinking about energy corridors. For example, if we had better integration of the West African power pool or the East African power pool, we can get economies of scale. Richer countries which have better balance sheet could attract more cheaper finance, and they could help with countries with large populations and countries with small populations. Countries with small populations often cannot fund these leapfrog technologies or infrastructure projects. So to think of a corridor model is probably a way to go, in which larger players, even corporations, can provide a more integrated solution. For example, in East Africa, the problem is not clean energy, by the way. It's largely about interconnection and integration of the grids between Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia. And if you were to integrate geothermal, hydro, wind, and solar technologies with a little bit of gas, you would actually find that you would be able to support cheaper energy solutions and better access and a larger volume of can grow the demand over time with better integration.
Mohamed,
So
you are talking about the energy corridors. Are you concerned with what happened now with the corridor in Palma because of the war in Mozambique? How this impacted, or how this could impact the energy corridor in Mozambique?
So the energy corridor in Mozambique is not about electrification. It's largely about export of gas, and Palma is the development of a new city. When I'm talking about energy corridors, I really mean taking the resource abundance and being able to integrate that to enhance electrification in those countries. So it's really about electrification, because electrification also allows for the development of other export products which are outside of the pure commodities. So gas is a commodity. If you look at the program for gas in Mozambique, it's largely for export. Most of those contracts are signed with Asia, and that's got nothing to do with internal and integration of these exports with development internally within the economy. There's huge scope for other types of economic activity within Mozambique, which should be encouraged. So so really, when I talk about energy corridors, I talk about integration of the electrical transmission and grid systems in those sub-regions.
Mohamed, thank you. Thank you so much. Let's talk with colleague Karim. The energy and the sustainability are an important topic of this roundtable. How can they be more compatible? How can they marry more and better with sustainability, climate change, the pandemic? How to join the two topics in one strategic point?
Thank you very much. Look, something that is important is this, where Africa stands, looking at your question. Africa could show the world how we could be climate friendly, environmentally friendly, because we are starting from a clean sheet. And why I say that is this: Africa lacks adequate energy, be it electricity, be it beautification of its energy resources in itself. And starting from a clean sheet, sitting where we are, if we have to build, the only continent that needs to build everything again and expand on it is Africa. So it means if we look at the right energy mix starting now, we have a better chance of a cleaner tomorrow. And that's very, very critical in decision-making, in all the energy type infrastructure to be built on the continent. If you look at the Grand Inga project, that's a mega project that could feed a lot of countries, talking about the energy corridors that were spoken on earlier. If you look at Nigeria's gas reserves, Nigeria is more of a gas country than an oil-producing country. Given that example, the West African gas pipeline that's been built, Nigeria could be that major exporter of gas feeding West Africa going down that way, while Senegal picks it up from the other end and feeds it back. So that's another form of cleaner energy that Africa could platform on and to integrate that. So I think with the ever-developing infrastructure on the continent, trying to close that energy gap and also plug that with the development of industrial growth and output on the continent, we as decision makers and as businessmen and entrepreneurs, more importantly, government, could platform this as an opportunity for Africa to lead the way to the world on how things should be done and done properly. Another key area that's very, very important to achieving these goals, more so in Africa, is government, leadership. Because if leadership enforces the law in making sure the environmental requirements on all projects are met, Africa would lead the way by far because of the low base we're starting from. So these are critical sectors, governments pushing and making sure decisions are made at the right time, making sure rules and regulations are followed, and making sure also that the right energy mix is implemented in various countries on the continent, and that will deliver a better climate-friendly and more environmentally friendly situations across the continent.
Thank you. Manuel, ask you if you want to comment the words of Karim, and ask you too about new projects to Motengil Africa in this year, in the next year. What kind of new projects could you announce today? Could you tell us?
No. So I think it was been mentioned by my colleagues. The energy corridor is fundamentally slow. It's kind of like infrastructure. The example that Kola gave of the Grandinga Dam.
Do you think the energy could be the big drive, because all the speakers talk about energy, the big drive to the development in Africa?
It's definitely, because without power we cannot do, without electricity we couldn't be here.
We can talk about climate change, sustainability,
everything.
Economy, industry, but we need energy.
I'm not sure how many of them are actually from our colleagues are in Africa at the moment speaking for Africa, but I would say that maybe out of the 3 of them, at least 1 is using a generator. That's a reality.
Yes.
In case of power failures, or all of them have backups for generators. If I was going to be in any country, or almost any country, we would have there will always be a backup. Even in South Africa, there are power shortages. There's time restrictions where you're gonna have electricity, and this is a key factor for the continent. Electricity. There is a huge project that Kola mentioned, which is the Grandinga Dam, which can bring more than 10,000 megawatts into the continent. But the biggest challenge for that project is the connections. How to connect to all the countries. And there are a lot of restrictions that countries sometimes they impose in themselves because of tensions that have been over the years between many countries. Some of the countries initially wouldn't authorize the electrification, the networks to come, because, for example, in the case of South Africa, they'd say we can take almost all the power, but we need a proper network to bring it down from DRC. So in terms of there are all the conditions to develop, this is the key factor, is in fact electricity and the energy corridors are a key factor. In terms of Motengil, we have announced significant projects in the last 6 months. I think priority is naturally to continue growth.
To give us some examples to the audience,
No, we have in partnership with Shoreline, we have signed the Kano-Maradi railway line in Nigeria. We have signed the Accra-Tema highway in Ghana. We finalized our the financial close for the Rwanda airport with Qatar Airways and the government. There's been a few projects. We are involved in the gas, which is in the oil and in the gas projects in Mozambique for Total. So which is a bit uncertain.
So are you really concerned with what happened in Palma?
Everyone is concerned, but I think the best way to face extremism is through development. Okay, so that project is a key project also to fight against extremism. So there is some tensions probably that need to be solved, but the development that project will bring into that region will, in my view, probably help solve the problem. Now, which comes first? There is this, like the chicken and the egg. Can we do the project without instability? But I think everyone agrees that that kind of developments and economic impact it will have will help sort a lot of those problems. But we need to reach to the production phase. And there are many projects we are following in the continent. We are listed, so I cannot just go and say what's the next project, unfortunately. But yes, I think we have a backlog for the next 3.5 years in Africa.
Motengil has a long experience in Africa, especially in Angola. Ask you, what are the advantages to being a Portuguese company in Africa?
It's. I would like to say that the company started in Africa, in Angola, in 1946. Yes. So our first internationalization was back home to Portugal. So it's a bit difficult to say we feel at home in Africa. We have a lot of experience in the continent. There are always challenges, but I wouldn't say that the challenges that Mota-Gil would face from going to Portugal to Ivory Coast will be smaller or bigger than, for example, Certem going to Senegal for Ivory Coast. You have to approach it as any other market.
But we have advantages in terms of cultural relationship, emotional language. Do you think this is it possible to measure these advantages?
We have, as Portuguese, I would say we have more advantage of adaptation, okay? Because what the Portuguese did in the 1500s and 1600s was to travel and to mingle. If you go, we say here in Portugal, every place you go, there's going to be always a Portuguese. We have the capacity to adapt and to culturally absorb what each one of those cultures and to interact, which I think is one of the big things that Portuguese have from our history, and we've always been able to interact in positive ways. And I think that is an advantage that us have as a Portuguese, but it's still challenging. It depends a lot of personality of the people, the culture of the company in itself. So there are many challenges.
And Africa, it's a big challenge, yes, always. Mohamed, what advice can you give to the investors who listen us? What kind of advice? We are near to the close. I ask you for an advice.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there needs to be a lot more collaboration between different constituencies on the continent, really to unlock the electricity potential that is there. I feel it's a bit almost criminal that for the last 50 years that with independence of countries, vast resources, that there's still over 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa without adequate electricity provision. It's just completely outrageous in my view. But I don't think this problem can only be solved by government. It requires different parties to come together and really try to unlock this. I think the potential is there. There's so many other things that can unfold as a result of that. We are definitely looking to set up a regional platform that can try to support the development of greater electrification on the continent. We would welcome interaction with various business parties on trying to tackle this problem. We have the resources, we can do it, but there are clearly other factors that are barriers, and we need to do this in a smart way. Thanks.
Taslim, the same question. One final advice to our audience, to the investors.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think, like I said earlier, finding able local partners to actually undertake projects is important. I believe, like I said earlier, Africa is the next place for certain type of growth. We talked about earlier, we wanted to, as businesses, we wanted to impact society positively at the same time for our action to make economic sense. Given the pent-up potential here, it's necessary to look at how our Portuguese counterparts and potential partners can come and contribute to the development story here, working hand in hand with local able companies to build up capacity and really create engines of economic growth and development. So, the partnerships is key. Like I always say, it's not just come and, I'm going to come and I'm going to do my thing. I think it adds a lot of value to have a local partner that knows the environment, knows how to navigate it, and can help facilitate introductions and common value creation over the long term, because Africa is a long-term play. Us as Certem, we very much look forward to connecting with any potential partner that's interested in playing a part in that story.
Nelson, maybe you don't have a special drug to have success in Africa, but please give us an advice, give to the audience and to the investors.
I would like to make a provocation before, because I heard a lot about technology, infrastructure, energy, and what it seems to me is this is the way to develop a country, but it's not the final end, namely in Africa. So when you are dependent of commodities like the oil industry, you have the problem that we saw one day. The countries that are producers were paying to the customers to get, because the price of the barrel was negative. So and Africa is a lot dependent of natural resources. So my belief is that we have 20 years or 15 or 10 years to develop the infrastructure based in the natural resources. But meanwhile, we have the diaspora, like Taslim, that was trained, developed, high-skilled, competent, coming from other countries, from the US, and that are coming back to the African countries. And they want to develop not the normal infrastructure based in energy, culture, but the knowledge society. I think this is the most important. Nigeria is one of the examples. So when I see the energy and the step forward to the clean energy, I think it is a way to get to another society, and the other society is the society of knowledge. And to be based only on the natural resources, I think this is clearly a problem that Africa was based, their philosophy. Angola, for sure, it is a lot dependent of oil. And you saw immediately the price of barrel came from $77 at the barrel to $50, and immediately the investment of the government became irrelevant because they didn't have money for nothing. So I think the provocation is infrastructure, yes, but natural resources. Yes, but as a way to develop the other society, the most interesting and smart society. And the human resources in Africa are very good. We just need to integrate, because most of them come from training in other countries. The universities in South Africa, Nigeria, they are very good. So we can use, so we have quite a young generation that is quite well developed, quite well trained. So we just need to get the right fit for them to develop the countries. And now the answer in terms of investment. I think as an investor, you have to get 3 Ps. You have to define that you have the right process. So the first P is you have to decide that you don't want to export, you want to create an international organization. So you don't want to be a trader, you want to have a local activity, and for this you have to think in the midterm. And you have to get, your company has to get money to invest. So has to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years losing money, so that it will gain after. Even in the same process, has to get a very, 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 very good finance controlling. It is fundamental. It has to define very strict rules in terms of transparency, ethical, and sustainability. And has to have the same rules that it have in Europe or in the US, has to get it in Africa. So, and this is the way to develop the process of a company. The second part is the people. I think the human capital, we have it in Africa. So what we need is to do what Taslim said. We have to develop the skills of people and to develop with local partners that knows the diversity of the markets that we don't know when we want to get an investment in Africa. So we have to get the right partner and we have to get the right employees there. And we don't need to transfer 200 Portuguese to work in a manufacturing plant in Angola, Nigeria, or whatever. And the final one is the right products. Because to sell Me Too products, we will not be successful, because for sure the bigger economies will, in terms of pharma, will substitute you because price will be quite low. So the main driver for this is to, instead of selling products that don't add value, we have to develop locally and invest in products that the others cannot copy. The others cannot develop for lower price. And I think this is the advantage. And if we do this PPP, we invest, we get the money back, and the country will be dependent of you, because you develop the country, you develop the people, you invested, and the technology, you are helping to develop it locally. And I think this is the clear value that you can add, because you have a fantastic society, culture in Africa, but sometimes we don't know. We prefer to gain money in the short term than to gain money in the long term.
Nelson, thank you very much for your final message with the 3 Ps, the process, the people, and of course the product. And now we have more 2 minutes to close this round table. 1 minute for Kola Karim, another minute for Manuel Mota, with a final message or maybe an advice. Kola Karim, what do you want to tell us?
The good news is Africa is now ready for the world. We have huge opportunities, and more so Portugal has been one of those countries, and Portuguese companies are one of those in the forefront, taking that opportunity. And what is amazing that I will say about Portuguese companies, the minute one big one comes into a market, all the others follow. So Africa's opened its doors. Welcome, Portugal. Welcome to the Portuguese companies. And let's integrate to build that bastion of opportunity, scale it up, and make it work for ourselves as a continent and as a people, and also to the benefit of the world. That's my advice.
Thank you so much. And Manuel, because Mohamed gave us an advice earlier, and now Manuel Mota, your final advice, your final message.
I think that for all investors and companies who are looking into growth and to expansion, I think they need to look at Africa as the continent of the present, not only the future, but the present. When they come for the future, it might be too late for them. Opportunities are there now. The investment is today. It's today that the opportunities exist. They will continue to exist for sure for many years, but Africa is a continent of the present. This is the present. This is where growth opportunity exists. This is where an impact can be made. So I think companies need to look at it today.
Thank you so much. It's a final message with a lot of hope to the present, to the future, of course. In this context of pandemic, is very important to have a lot of hope. Dear speakers, thank you for helping us to understand the opportunities, the challenges in Africa, and how the exports and investments could be a drive for the development of the continent, the African continent. Thank you so much. And to the closing session, I announce the presence of the Secretary of State for the Internationalization, Eurico Brilhante Dias. Welcome, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Rosalia, dear Rosalia, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends from Europe, of course, but also from Africa. It is both an honor and a privilege for me to address this gathering. I would like to start by thanking AICEP, our AICEP, CIP, and of course our team of the EU Portuguese presidency for organizing this very timely event. In fact, today we celebrate the Earth Day, and I cannot imagine a better date to engage in a discussion on internationalization and sustainability. Deepening the engagement with Africa remains a top priority for Portugal, both at national and, of course, an EU level. The business seminar, mainly focused on farmer, set in many ways the tone for the high-level EU-Africa Green Investment Forum tomorrow, one of the main policy events of the Portuguese presidency of the European Council, due to take place tomorrow, as I said. The presence of Portuguese companies in Africa comes indeed a long way, a long way indeed. But it isn't by any means static. From a continuous focus on Portuguese-speaking countries, our companies are now expanding their activity across borders and diversifying their offer to new and innovative sectors, such as pharma, and pharma is so important today during this pandemic, water and waste management, renewable energies, financial services, ICT, and among other important industries. In different African geographies, from Morocco to Algeria and Egypt, from Nigeria to Ivory Coast, Cameroon and Ghana, from Tanzania to Kenya and Zambia, just to name a few. Portuguese companies are open their activity, they have more activities in different countries, and they are open their activity and the geographical scope with an evident success, I may say. Some of these shared their stories with us today, and for that I give them a warm thank you. But, dear friends, as you know, we are living challenging times. The pandemic crisis serves as a reminder that now, more than ever, we live in an interconnected and interdependent world. People-to-people exchanges, both economic and cultural and social, I would say, have reached record high levels by the turning of the 21st century. This trend was closely followed by the increasing pressure on Earth's resources. Global warming and climate change induced disasters. We, private and public, and we should work together. We really should work together. Private and public sectors have shared responsibility to work towards an achievement of a better and more sustainable future for all, to address global challenges such as energy poverty, climate change, as I said, and environmental degradation. These are reasons supporting the European Green Deal, and we need to stress that. It's real problems. Real problems are supporting the European Green Deal. And the EU has taken on the objective of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. And to that end, of reducing emissions at least 55% by 2030. Moreover, it wants to protect 30% of its land and marine areas in the name of the preservation of biodiversity, and to reduce 90% of greenhouse gas emissions in transport by 2050. And climate emergency is the backdrop, and we should underline that, as it was said this week by the UN Secretary General. The climate emergency is the backdrop and the epicenter of today's challenges, and that is why the ambitious financial stimulus to the green economy in the EU will amount to 225 billion euros up to 2027. I would say it again, 225 billion euros in order to address a proper financial response to this emergency. In line with these European Green Goals, Portugal has launched a wide array of policies, such as the Roadmap for Carbon Neutrality 2050, the Action Plan for the Circular Economy, and the National Hydrogen Strategy. But, dear friends, I need also to highlight this issue. Dear friends, Africa, the continent, seems to be going the same way, and that is important. We are aligned in these goals in order to reduce climate change and to address a proper response to this emergency, as I said. Africa seems to be going the same way. And with an expected population of more than 1.5 billion people in 2030, half of whom under 25 years old by 2050, is a diverse continent with a huge untapped economic potential, but also challenges, such as desertification, intensive urban growth, soil degradation, biodiversity loss, and water and energy scarcity. Nevertheless, it is home to the world's largest free trade area, and African countries, supported by the action of regional economic integration and financial organizations, are now, as are we Europeans, devising the best strategies to overcome the pandemic and to promote economic sustainable recovery, to alleviate poverty, build livelihoods and improve quality of life. And this growth should rely on effective policies, programs and projects focusing on smart and resilient infrastructure, sustainable urban planning, adequate management of natural resources, and enhanced food security. Responses to those challenges and to the looming economic crisis must be compatibly and integrated, transforming two serious problems into an opportunity. An opportunity to build back better, greener, and together, I believe that strengthening trade and investment relations with Africa play an important role in this regard. But I should also stress by our side, from the Portuguese perspective and from the private Portuguese sector, Portuguese companies' ability to contribute to the sustainable development of Africa is important, is considerable. The most recent statistics indicate that Portuguese exports of environmental goods and services have increased 8.3% between 2007 and 2018. And we are growing in this kind of goods and services more than we are growing in our exports in the same period. Portugal was the 8th EU member state with more gross value added in this kind of goods and services. And among the 28, because as you know, in that period we were 28 member states, we were the 5th, taking into account this sector, or the exports of this sector, in the global Portuguese exporters' goods and services. Renewable energy, resource management, waste, and water management were leading subsectors. I believe there is still a significant room for growth, and only 6 to 8% of our exports, as I said, are in this sector, or are growing in this sector, and 6 to 8%, as I said also, are our exports of goods and services to African countries. But we should raise some questions. We want to export more, we want to invest more, but we should raise some questions. And those questions are, for us, are related with two different issues. Firstly, how can we take advantage of these opportunities and overcome the obstacles that are going to be there in order to be overcome? How can we boost, second question, how can we boost our bilateral exports and investment of this kind of goods, of this kind of specific goods related with the environment, goods and services related with the environmental industries? I would answer to these two questions taking into account 5 different topics. First, in order to answer to these 2 questions, we need to reduce barriers to trade. And that is something that is important. We are facing a pandemic. We are facing a pandemic which is a new challenge that we were not expecting. Nevertheless, the first issue and the first element in our strategy must be the reduction of trade barriers. And that is fundamental, not only between Europe and Africa as a whole, but also taking into account the specific agreements that we have in order to cooperate. For instance, we should stress our partnership between Europe and the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group, and EU and its member states. And we should highlight also that the former agreement, the Cotonou Agreement, was signed during the 2000 Portuguese presidency of the EU. And now we have a new opportunity to move forward and to have a new agreement in order to reduce barriers, tariff and non-tariff barriers, in order to have trade. Without trade, without foreign investment, it's going to be difficult to address a proper response to those questions in order to take advantage of the opportunities and, of course, in order to have and to boost exports and investment between our two continents. And I should say also that we need to take advantage of your priority in order to have an African continental free trade area. And that agreement within or taking into account African countries is an agreement that can be an important tool in order also to discuss with Europe how can we boost investment and trade between us, between European Union and Africa, but also in order to take advantage of this specific opportunity related with the environmental industries. But second point, in order to answer to those two questions, we need to promote resource efficiency and local solutions for reutilization of materials, and we need to focus on circular economy. We have so many Portuguese companies focus on that. That issue is in companies' strategies. We have several companies that are up to date, renewing their commitment with sustainability, but at the same time, they are renewing this commitment with sustainability, investing in materials that can be used more than once, I would say. Third, we need, of course, to use the right financial mechanisms and incentives in order to bring forward infrastructure and projects in order to develop also a green or a green agenda in Africa, or more than that, a green agenda between EU and Africa. I need to highlight and to stress the importance of the World Bank, the African Development Bank, but also the European Investment Bank as fundamental tools in order to have the proper mechanism or the proper mechanisms in order to invest in these industries. They should be a priority. They are right now a priority, but these mechanisms, these financial mechanisms, must be aligned with this political priority focused on green industries or industries related with the environment and the protection of the environment. I would say that if we cannot align these financial mechanisms, if it is not possible, and I'm sure it is possible, and somehow that alignment is already done, I need to stress that without that alignment, it's going to be difficult to take advantage of this important opportunity. Fourth, we need to have an inclusive approach. That means this approach cannot be only to be an advantage that is taken by big companies. We need to include SMEs. And we need to include SMEs in the value chain. And the SMEs can bring us innovative solutions, more flexible. And it's a way to share, of course, technologies. It's a way to share human resources that they have skills to answer to this important opportunity. And for that reason, it's important to provide services of capacity building to SMEs in order to give them the tools to take advantage of those financial mechanisms that I have mentioned before, but at the same time to give to Europe and Africa the opportunity to have an inclusive growth but an inclusive growth also in these industries related with the environment. And finally, we have a specific sector that is fundamental and crucial to develop our economies. A sector with a huge impact on the environmental resources, but a sector that is fundamental to create jobs and to promote growth. And we need to develop a sustainable tourism sector in Africa. We will have, later on, after this pandemic, again, an opportunity to develop this sector. This sector is quite related with the environment, with the unique environment that we can that we can see in Africa. And this tourism sector is something that is fundamental to create links between people and the environment, to create opportunities, to create, as I said, new jobs and economic growth, but it's something to create awareness of that fantastic context that we have in Africa. And we should take carefully this opportunity, because tourism, a sustainable tourism, is crucial also to have a sustainable approach to our resources. Let me finally say to you something that is important. Right now, it's an important figure. Right now, we have almost 18,000 Portuguese companies exporting to Africa. Many of them, many of them, with local operations. They are not only exporting, they are creating opportunities in Africa with local operations, creating local jobs. And I hope that this contribution, the contribution of these companies, can be, or should be, I hope, can be an important tool to develop not only better economic relationships, but a more sustainable environment in Africa. A former US Secretary of Treasury, Henry Paulson, said once, "Economic growth and environmental protection are not at odds. They are opposite sides of the same coin if you are looking at longer-term prosperity." And that is the challenge. How can we promote sustainability? How can we fight against climate change? How can we manage better resources? How can we manage better waste, water and waste? But at the same time, how can we promote growth, new jobs, qualified jobs, and opportunities for our citizens? This is the challenge that we need to tackle. And together, I suppose, we are stronger to have a better future. Thank you. It was a fantastic seminar. And tomorrow, we count with you in order to be participants of our high-level meeting. Thank you. Good morning from Lisbon. And dear Rosalia, once again, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Secretary of State Eurico Brilhante Dias. Thank you for this closing session with a lot of opportunities on the roadmap. And now, let me say thank you to all the audience, to all of you who attend today this event. I really hope you enjoyed this journey, Portugal, Africa. Have a nice day.